Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. God Level Choice. Obito, come and inherit the Hokage. Chapter 1. 39 Years of Konoha. The breeze is not dry and the sun is just right. Inside the spacious classroom, the teacher chanted scriptures non-stop on the podium. I would like to ask, is there any more suitable environment for sleeping than this? Hoo, ho, ho. A regular snoring sound sounded softly. A little boy's head was slumping, looking very funny. However, the little people around him turned a blind eye to this. This guy sleeps in class, not just for a day or two. I really doubt that he came to school not to study, but to treat insomnia. The teacher seems to have noticed something unusual here. The little girl next to the boy pushed him helplessly. Obito, don't sleep. The teacher is watching you. The boy opened his eyes and wiped the scratches at the corners of his mouth. He looked around unconsciously. What caught my eye was a cute little loli. She has short brown hair and big eyes. There are two purple patterns on both sides of the round little face. The boy always felt that this little girl looked strangely familiar. He suddenly became excited. I handcuff you, isn't this Nohara Rin? He rubbed his eyes and looked next to the girl. I saw a handsome young man with short silver hair, a mask, and indifferent eyes. Hatake Kakashi. The boy's mouth opened into an O shape. This situation, if it is not a dream, then there is only one possibility left. I traveled through time. He touched his cheek and ended up touching the goggles on his forehead. Think about what the girl called me just now. His current identity is self-evident. I time traveled into Uchiha Obito's body. Ding, a time traveler has been detected. Do you want to bind this system? The young man was feeling dizzy and asked subconsciously. System, what system? Ding, it is detected that the host is speaking, and the God-level selection system is successfully bound. Juvenile, the system that does not play cards according to routines once again confused the young man. The teacher on the podium was angry. A piece of chalk landed accurately on Obito's head. Obito, stand up. He has had enough with Obito. Even if you sleep in my class, you still talk and disrupt the order. This. The young man stood up quickly and looked at the teacher with some anxiety. The fear of teachers is engraved in the DNA of every student. Of course, we are not talking about that kind of teacher. If that kind of teacher, it should be that he wants to engrave the DNA into the other person's body. Just when the boy's train of thought went astray, the teacher knocked on the blackboard with a gloomy expression. Repeat the question I just talked about again. If you can't answer it well, get out of here and make me stand. The young man narrowed his eyes slightly. He looked at the topic on the blackboard and fell into deep thought. The above are some questions about common sense in the ninja world. It can be said to be the foundation of foundations. But he discovered that it was fused with Obito's memory. These questions are still a bit out of scope for Obito. Just when the young man hesitated, a curtain of light appeared in front of his eyes. There are three options displayed above. Option 1. Sincerely admit your mistake to the teacher, Sao Nyen. After all, sleeping in class is not good for the cervical spine. It is recommended to go home and sleep next time. Completion reward. Teacher's favorability +1. Option 2. Try to defend. Tell the teacher that if you can't do these questions, you will definitely be able to do them. Completion reward. Homework doubled tonight. Option 3. Use your nostrils to say to the teacher, it's not that I look down on you, these questions are purely an insult to my IQ. Completion reward. Common sense in the ninja world. The young man's spirits perked up. Although I haven't read many study books, but he has read a lot of novels. I have turned on cheat. None of the three options have much effect on improving strength. But what we are playing is the West Blue Coast. Get excited. The boy stepped on the stool with one foot. He raised his cheeks, looked at the teacher through his nostrils and said, Teacher, it's not that I look down on you. These questions are purely an insult to my IQ. The classroom suddenly fell into dead silence. Lin looked blank. Obito-kun, what happened today? Even Kakashi couldn't help but glance at Obito. This idiot, he obviously doesn't know anything, but he still looks arrogant. Idiot, successful selection, obtain reward, common sense in the ninja world. The prompt sounded again. The young man felt that there were suddenly many things in his mind. That thing is called knowledge. As a result, his expression became even more exaggerated. If you use 4 words to form it, it means shitting you. The teacher's voice shook with anger, as if he was singing bel canto. Good, very good, excellent. If you don't answer these questions today, you won't be able to leave tonight. The young man was calm and composed. In the eyes of the students who were shocked, admired and looked at as idiots. He gave the answer to every question accurately. Did this guy really answer it? Although the difficulty of these questions is at the level of 1 + 1 = 2. But the guy who answered. But Obito, hey. Lin was stunned, Kakashi was stunned. Even the teacher was shocked. The teacher's eyes were moist. He has a sense of bitterness and accomplishment that comes from attaining righteousness. Okay, sobbing, sit down. From now on, listen to my lectures and you are not allowed to sleep anymore. The young man sat down speechlessly. Isn't it just to answer a question? Why are you still crying? The teacher calmed down and continued teaching. Under normal circumstances, as long as Obito doesn't cause trouble, the classroom will be in order. Then, the class passed so smoothly. The young man also accepted his new identity during this time. Traveling across time is a one-way ticket. Now that he has entered this body, he has merged with Obito's memories and emotions. From now on, I will be Uchiha Obito. He swore secretly in his heart. I will definitely rely on my unremitting efforts. Change the tragic fate of the Uchiha clan. Ahem. Are you right, system? Obito chuckled. Now that I have cheat, wouldn't it be nice to lie flat? Why work hard? Tell everyone a joke, even if you are a low-end person without talent. As long as you keep working hard, you can become a hero. Please. This is a casual joke made by the Hokage's son. No one really takes it seriously, right? After school. The little guys are all packing their little school bags. But Obito is different, very free and easy. When his native brother came to school, he didn't bring any books with him at all. At this time, he was holding his chin and looking at the little loli next to him with a smile. Nurture, I like it the most. Lin's expression was slightly unnatural. Obito-kun is really weird today. First. And now he keeps staring at himself. Her face was flushed and she was combing her broken hair. Obito-kun, why do you keep looking at me? Is my hair messed up? Obito shook his head and said seriously. From a distance, it's as bright as the sun rising as the morning glow, and from up close, it's as bright as a flower blooming out of Lubo. Lin, you are so beautiful. Although the language of Neon Country cannot express the full artistic conception of this sentence. But it was enough to make the little loli's heart upset. Take it, Obito-kun, see you tomorrow. Lin put her small cloth bag on her back and ran out of the classroom. Looking at the back of the little loli running away. There was a smile on Obito's lips. Nohara Lin, do you know? Obito's favorite thing is you. You are the only light in Obito's world. And I am Obito. The sun is about to set, and wisps of rays of light are pouring down, covering the earth with a golden veil. Obito held his head, hummed a little tune, and wandered towards home. Just like the sun shining through the dark night, the dawn is so quiet. He was a Pai Sai in his previous life, and now he has merged with another Pai Sai. He didn't even dare to think about how jumpy his personality was now. Not a moment later, Obito stopped in front of a small house. We're home now. He threw his shoes casually outside the door and jumped into the house. Grandma, I'm back. There were rustling sounds inside the house. An old lady with gray hair and kind eyes came out. With a loving smile, she rubbed Obito's head. Little Obito is back. Are you hungry? Grandma will prepare something delicious for you. Obito nodded with a smile. Good. Grandma is his only relative in this world. In the Hokage, this is a miserable world where 3 people can't even make a pair of parents. Wanting to have a complete family is simply a luxury. Like Haru Sakura, she simply doesn't know how lucky she is despite being blessed. After having dinner with Grandma, Obito returned to the room and began to think about future development plans. He doesn't know how to do ninjutsu. Physical skills. The original Obito still knew nothing about this. Instead, it was when he was watching Hokage. With his amazing talent, he taught himself a trick. One move can make a person feel the pain of 1,000 years of death. 1,000 years of death. But I am running too slowly now. I don't dare to use this trick lightly. After all, if someone caught him, he would probably be beaten to death. Obito was suddenly in a helpless situation. After a while, he simply lay down. It's not that I don't want to work hard, it's just that my strength doesn't allow it. It didn't take long for him to fall asleep. The next day. Ninja school. A figure hurriedly broke into the class. Bowed repeatedly to the teacher on the podium. Sorry, sensei, Obito said breathlessly. I met an old woman who needed help on the way to school today, so. Hearing this familiar reason, the teacher was speechless. Obito, if I remember correctly, you have helped more than a dozen grandmothers this month. There was a burst of laughter in the classroom. Every villain has an expression of gloating on his face. Lin held her forehead helplessly. Obito-kun really can't even make up a reason. Kakashi is everyday indifferent. What he despises the most is guys like Obito who have no spirit of contract. Obito was a little depressed and didn't know how to explain it. He also thought it was outrageous that he would meet the old lady every day when he went to school. He even doubted it. Did these old ladies agree to form a team to squat on their own every day? The teacher sighed and waved his hand. Okay, go sit on your seat. He was too lazy to waste time on this poor student. So Obito hurriedly sat down next to Lin as if he was being pardoned. Being immersed in learning always makes people forget about time. With Obito's full concentration, the day passed quickly. Obito-kun, get out of class is over. I heard Lin's soft voice. Obito got up from the table in a daze. He stretched lazily and wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth. The little loli next to him had already packed her school bag and was about to leave. See you tomorrow, Obito-kun, Lin said playfully, looking at Xiaonizi with a smile as bright as a flower. There was also a smile on Obito's lips. See you tomorrow, Lin-chan. Return home. After having dinner with Grandma, Obito went into his room again, thinking about training. Just when he had this idea, the long-lost system prompt sounded. Then, a light curtain appeared in front of his eyes. Option 1. There is no need to slack off in your cultivation. Just practice hard all night, young man. Completion reward. 0.01 card chakra. Option 2. When cultivating, one must let nature take its course. Eating and sleeping are also part of cultivation, just wash up and sleep. Completion reward. 0.01 card chakra. Obito looked at these two options and fell into thought. If he guessed correctly, this card should mean Kakashi. It's an old unit of measurement. So no need to say which one to choose. Obito lay down directly and put the quilt over his head. At this time, it would be even better if a black man could come to carry the coffin. Sleep until dawn. After getting up, Obito found that his physical condition seemed to have improved a bit. It seems that my 0.01 card chakra has arrived. After getting dressed, Obito went out with a solemn expression. He looked around and moved forward cautiously. He acted cautiously, as if he were a thief. Seeing that there was only 100 meters away from the school, he then breathed a sigh of relief. When turning the corner at the intersection, based on the principle of caution, he poked his little head out furtively. As a result, he met the eyes of an old woman. Wow, I was careless. Still got squatted. Just when Obito was hesitating, an option suddenly appeared in front of him. Option 1. Pretend you didn't see anything and go straight to school. I have presbyopia inherited from the Uchiha clan, so it is normal for me to not be able to see individuals. Completion reward. Don't be late for school today. Option 2. Help the old lady cross the street enthusiastically, just like you always do. Completion reward. Moral sense +1. Option 3. It's been a long time since anyone gave Grandma a hug. Let's carry her to the other side of the road. Completion reward. Obtain the halo of respect for the elderly. Aura of respect for the elderly. As a good boy who respects the elderly, all individuals over the age of 60 will have a +1 favorability towards you. Obito was even more confused. There is no doubt that option 3 has the most generous rewards. If I run into Danzo in the future, I might be able to establish a friendship or something. But for such a physically demanding task, I'm still a 6-year-old. I have no choice but to give it a try for the reward. Obito walked to the old lady resolutely. Grandma, let me help you. A happy smile appeared on the old woman's face. You're such a good. The old lady hasn't finished speaking yet. He was hugged by Obito with a shocked look on his face, and it was like a princess hug. Obito hugged her and walked towards the other side of the road. This. The old woman had mixed feelings in her heart. I didn't expect that at my age, I could still experience this kind of treatment. After walking hard, he put the old lady on the other side of the road. The beep in Obito's mind also sounded. Successful selection. Get reward. Halo of respect for the elderly. When the matter is over, he brushes off his clothes and goes away, hiding his merit and fame. After completing the task, Obito hurried towards the school. He felt that he could still save something. The old lady looked at Obito's leaving figure. Suddenly I felt that this child looked so friendly. In the classroom, Obito and the teacher stared at each other. So on your way to school, you met an old lady who needed help again. Obito nodded in surprise. Teacher, you are really good at predicting things. You have guessed everything. The teacher was speechless and choked. Sit down. He originally thought that Obito had changed his gender. Unexpectedly, the 1+1 2 days ago was his peak. That's it, let's continue with class. By the afternoon, it's the school's turn for the weekly practical classes. All the little people stood in the school playground with excited faces. Compared to sitting in the classroom, listening to boring theories, practical classes are more interesting. The first link is shuriken practice. The teacher moved several targets from the warehouse. With a smile on his face, he waved to Kakashi in the crowd. Kakashi, it's up to you to demonstrate it to everyone. No matter which world it is in. The ones most loved by teachers are always the top students. Of course, our crane tail is also very cute. Kakashi nodded. He walked out of the crowd with his hands in his pockets and stood slowly in front of the target. A breeze blew by. With his silver hair flying, he moved. The little people around him couldn't even see his movements clearly. When reacting, several shurikens have penetrated deeply into the red heart of the target. After a moment of silence, the little girl screamed. Kakashi-kun is so handsome. My card palace. I will give birth to you, and hand in homework for a lifetime. Among the shouts and shouts, Obito didn't hear Lin's voice. He was secretly relieved. I knew that Lin would not be such a superficial girl. Where is my Lin? Obito is looking for Lin. Then this was discovered. At some point, Lin had already reached Kakashi's side. Kakashi-kun, are you tired? Drink some hot water. How can it be repaired? Including Obito, the men in the class were angry. A little boy with Madara on his face said angrily. Kakashi, this fool, has taken all the limelight, how can the brothers behave? Obito nodded with deep understanding. Brother Sparrow is right, why don't you go beat that guy up and vent your anger on me? The little boy said angrily. Go away, my name is Naganoha, don't give me random nicknames. He patted his chest and said confidently. Just wait, even though I'm not as good as that guy with shurikens. But in the duel later, I will give him some color to show off, let him be so flamboyant. Obito sighed quietly. In fact, they didn't show off at all. It's just that he looks better than us. At this time, among the boys, an unsociable voice sounded. But don't you think Kakashi is really handsome? Half a minute later, a green-skinned watermelon head was kicked out of the group chat for arousing public outrage. The teacher looked at the list and called the names one by one. Have the students come forward one by one to perform the shuriken test. Except for Kakashi, who hit all the shots and stunned the audience. The performance of other students seemed to be quite satisfactory. The last one, Uchiha Obito. The teacher's tone was hard to describe. Obito heard his name and stepped forward with steps that he didn't recognize. He threw the shuriken in his hand casually, turned around and left without looking back. Because a real man never looks back to see an explosion. There was a burst of laughter from the crowd. Ha ha ha, this idiot didn't hit the target again. If you're at this level and still clamoring to be a Hokage every day, the Uchiha clan are all idiots. That's right, he is far wrong compared to Kakashi-kun. In my opinion, Kakashi-kun is the man who can become a Hokage. Obito picked his ears and didn't take these mocking words seriously at all. In Konoha, Cranitail is the strongest being. You guys know shit. Only those who can't learn anything as a child can learn to cheat when they grow up. The second link is the battle link. Many boys are already gearing up and staring at Kakashi eagerly. Although Kakashi is extremely powerful, no one has been able to defeat him. But Kakashi's shots are very measured, and he always hits the target in the battle. So everyone has no respect for him. The teacher stood in the middle of the field, looked at the little people around him, and said with a smile. Everyone chooses his own opponent. Who wants to be the first? Before the teacher finished speaking, 3 options suddenly appeared in front of Obito's eyes. Option 1. Challenge Kakashi and defeat Kakashi. I, the Uchiha clan, become stronger when encountering the strong, and I am invincible at the same level. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Completion reward, priority in choosing a mate. Option 2. Challenge Might Guy and make sure you don't lose for 10 minutes. Youth cannot be slacked off. Let's have a hot youth showdown with Guy. Completion reward, physical skill improvement, genin level. Option 3. Challenge Nohara Rin and beat her up. What are you planning to do with a man? Do you have the ability to hit the girl you like? Completion reward, Killer Halo. The killer's halo is pained. The deeper the love, the more ruthless the attack. When attacking a loved one, the damage caused can be increased without limit. Good guy. I'm a good guy. The third option directly confused Obito people. It's a pity that the killer halo is giving me this pain. It's better to leave it to my brother Itachi. Obito doesn't want to torture his wife for a while and chase her to the crematorium. As for option 1, what a joke, he can't beat Kakashi now. After weighing it up, there is only option 2, which is more likely to be completed. So Obito no longer hesitated and said to the teacher, I'll go first, sensei. I want to challenge Might Guy. Everyone was a little stunned when they heard this. Contrary to Kakashi, who clicks until he reaches the point and can move and retract freely during the battle, Might Guy always goes all out whenever he takes action. Most people really can't stand those fists and kicks falling on them. So no one has ever dared to challenge Might Guy. This kid Obito, is he so brave now? The teacher hesitated. There won't be any major teaching accidents in a while. Are you sure, Obito? Obito nodded firmly. I'm sure, teacher. The teacher nodded slightly. Everyone, step back and give Obito and Guy enough space. After a while, in the middle of the clearing, Obito and Guy stand facing each other. As Guy approached step by step, he felt waves of pressure. Brother Beast, please come back later. Guy said seriously. Don't worry, Obito, I will do my best. The corners of Obito's eyes twitched. Brother, you may be mistaken. I just want you to be gentler. They each raised a hand. The index finger and middle finger point toward the sky, and the other 3 fingers are brought together to form the seal of opposition. Seal it, let the battle begin. The moment the arm falls, Guy's figure flew towards Obito like a flying swallow, bringing up waves of air along the way. The distance of a few steps only took a breath. Shimada. Obito was shocked and retreated violently. However, Guy was faster than him and got stuck in front of him. He lowered his center of gravity, turned his hips, and suddenly pulled out a beautiful swing leg. Boom! This leg was caught by the strong wind and fell hard on Obito's body. Obito was knocked to the ground directly, grinning in pain and looking hideous. He opened his mouth and spoke a piece of Chinese quintessence that others could not understand. An asterisk at %%. Guy asked with concern on his face while standing on one leg, posing in a cool pose. Do you want to continue, Obito? Obito struggled to get up and nodded through gritted teeth. Continue. Boom. Obito flies again. He stood up and dusted himself off. Continue. Boom. Continue. Boom. Quote. Guy attacks violently and relentlessly. It fell on Obito again and again, knocking him to the ground hard. However, Obito is unyielding. He got up again and again, shouting, continue. The playful expressions on the faces of the little people around disappeared. This guy keeps getting knocked down, but insists on standing up again and again. Is he really the same guy who gave up halfway no matter what he did? Naganoha's expression was complicated. This kid Obito, since when did he become so bloody? Lin's eyes were full of worry and she clenched her little hand subconsciously. Why Obito-kun still refuses to give up? If this continues, you will have physical problems. Boom! In the roar of the sky, Guy whipped his leg again and landed hard on Obito's lower abdomen. Obito was knocked to the ground again. This time, he really didn't want to get up again. There was heat everywhere on my body. Every muscle ached violently. It's so difficult to complete this task, he thought silently. Don't stop, continue. Obito groaned tremblingly. For those who didn't know, I thought he was enjoying a massage. Guy on the opposite side put away his fists and shook his head solemnly. Obito-kun, I admire your will. But our duel ends here. Even the teacher was moved by Obito's spirit. I had really made a mistake before. This boy's perseverance is quite worthy of Jonin, he said with a pleased look on his face. Obito, your performance has been very good, let's stop here. Obito spoke without hesitation. No, as a severe obsessive-compulsive disorder patient, he does not allow himself to have a record of mission failure. He said impassionedly to Guy. Brother Beast, youth does not allow for any compromise. Please continue to whip me, I will never give up until my youth burns out. He glanced at his system panel and muttered quietly. Well, my youthful fire can still burn for at least 6 minutes and 47 seconds. Obito's remarks about youth, it simply spoke to Guy's heart. At this moment, he suddenly felt like he had met his soulmate, and he couldn't help but burst into tears. Obito-kun, this is youth. I will continue to do my best, because this is the greatest respect for you. Guy burst into tears, while punching and kicking Obito on the ground. Such a weird scene. It really makes people a little, can't help but laugh. I don't know who laughed first. Then there was laughter one after another, and even Lin laughed sadly. Obito covered his face with his arms and lay helpless on the ground. Guy's solid eyes. The horse rider actually stepped harder than before. He was a little melancholy. Unexpectedly, the first time I was beaten after time traveling was at my own request. Destiny is like a girl, it is really unpredictable. Successful selection. Obtain reward. Physical skills improvement genin level. The moment when the system prompt sounds, Obito shouted immediately. Stop, 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 I give up. Guy quickly retracted his legs, squatted down, and helped Obito up. Are you okay, Obito-kun? Obito's legs were trembling and he said sadly. Do you think I look like I'm fine now? His eyes were bruised and there were blood streaks on his nose. The little face was even more swollen, not much smaller than a pig's head. I'm sorry, Obito-kun. Guy scratched his head in embarrassment, feeling guilty deep down. See Guy like this. On the contrary, Obito was a little embarrassed. After all, he had requested the severe beating just now. Even if Guy is wrong, it's because he's being honest. Think of this. He stretched out his hand towards Guy and held out his index and middle fingers. Guy was stunned at first. Then he also stretched out his hand and clasped Obito's fingers with 2 fingers. The seal of reconciliation is done. The teacher took the lead in applauding. The little people around also applauded from the bottom of their hearts. Even Kakashi is no exception. Today's battle had changed his impression of Obito. After the applause fell, the teacher commented while using medical ninjutsu to heal Obito's injuries. Thank you Obito and Guy for giving us a wonderful matchup. Hearing the teacher's praise, Obito felt a little elated. However, the teacher's next words broke his guard. Although Obito-san's basic skills are in shambles and nothing, there is still room for improvement. But his spirit of never giving up is worth learning from all of us. Okay, who's going to be in the next group? In the crowd, a little boy with a Madara look on his face stood up. It was Naganoha. He twisted his neck and said loudly, Here I go, I want to challenge Kakashi. Oh, the teacher's eyes narrowed and he nodded. Okay, then the second team, Yuha versus Kakashi. Kakashi also walked out of the crowd. The two stood in the middle of the open space, forming the seal of opposition with their hands. Kakashi-kun, come on. My god, Kadian looks so handsome when he forms the seal. HMPH, Kadian will be even more handsome when he takes action. The overwhelming cheers from the girls around him made Nagano wave a little irritated. Before Kakashi could put his hand down, he roared angrily, pulled out a kunai, and attacked Kakashi. The kunai drew an arc in the air. A flash of lightning pierced Kakashi's face. However, Kakashi tiptoed. He turned slightly to avoid the blow. Snort. Nagano Wave snorted coldly. He retracted the kunai, turned the stab into a cut, and slashed at Kakashi again with his backhand. There were exclamations from the crowd. Ah, be careful, Kadian. Kakashi's eyes were calm. He didn't seem to pay attention to the incoming kunai at all. Instead of retreating, he advanced, his arms tilted up. A light palm shot out and landed on Naganoami's wrist. Ding dong. Hiroshi Nagano's wrist hurt, and Kumo suddenly fell to the ground. TCH, you don't know your own abilities, and you actually want to challenge Kadian. That's right, I really don't know who gave him the courage. The sarcasm was like a knife, piercing into Naganoami's heart. His expression suddenly darkened, almost dripping with water. Naganoha growled, originally I just wanted to play with you casually, but now it seems I have to use that trick. You forced me to. Taijutsu Nagano Combo. Avertisement. Naganoami's speed suddenly increased by 3 points. Punch after punch, like a gust of wind and rain, enveloped Kakashi. The teacher's eyes lit up. He nodded first, then shook his head. Naganoha's performance is quite remarkable. After all, his father was a Chunin. This is an advantage that many students do not have. Under a good heritage, among his peers, few are Naganoha's opponents. It's a pity. His opponent this time is Kakashi. Naganoami is proud of his talent and family background. In front of the other party, it is not worth mentioning at all. On talent, he has been teaching for more than 10 years and has never seen a better student than Kakashi. On family background, as long as Konoha's White Fang Senpai is around, the Hitaki clan will be the top family in Konoha. Unfortunately, the teacher seemed to have thought of something and let out a long sigh. The showdown continues. Under Naganoami's continuous attacks, Kakashi's figure became erratic. Like a small boat in a storm, it rises and falls with the huge waves. However, the waves came and went, but the boat would not capsize. Just asking, are you angry? Crucial moment. Kakashi is always able to dodge Naganoami's attacks by just a hair. The rain was blowing and the wind was blowing, but not a drop of water touched me. Nagano Wave faced the air and furiously output for a long time. After a set of combos, he didn't touch the corner of Kakashi's clothes. On the contrary, it made me out of breath. Do you want to continue? Kakashi asked calmly. One person is calm and calm, the other person is incompetent and furious, superior and inferior, the judgment is made. The sarcasm around him intensified. Naganoha was a little unable to get off the stage at this time. Kakashi's calm words, to him, it sounded more like a provocation. He said nothing. With shame and humiliation, he attacked Kakashi again. Gotta make this guy look good. This is the only thought in his mind now. Faced with Naganoha's unorganized attack, Kakashi shook his head slightly. Forget it, end the battle. He didn't win with one blow just now, which already saved this guy enough face. He tilted his head and avoided Naganoha's fist. Then a straight punch was thrown, knocking Naganoami to the ground. He grasped the power of this punch very well. Just enough to knock down Naganoami, but not cause any substantial damage to the opponent. Nagano stumbled to the ground, looking dazed. It seems a little hard to accept the fact that he lost. See this. Kakashi took 2 steps forward and stretched out his hand towards Naganoami on the ground. Seeing this scene, the girls were furious again. Ah, Kadian is so graceful, I love it. Strong, handsome, and so polite. He is truly worthy of being my husband. Go away, you always call me husband, it's so superficial. That's my husband, okay. Sisters, don't hurt your friendship because of a boy, just give the card palace to me, hee. Draw your swords, love rivals. Let's show off in a duel, and let's rely on our strength. Obito was stunned as he listened. I go. Girls in this world mature too early. I was handcuffed, and I suddenly had a bold idea. I just don't know if punishment is possible in the Hokage world. Just when Obito's train of thought went astray, a roar brought his attention back. Stop pretending, Lousy doesn't need you to be pretentious here. Naganoha slapped Kakashi's hand away and stood up angrily. A girl whispered in confusion. Mahjong took the wrong medicine today. Why do you do this to Kakashi? The other girl was also a little angry. That's right, Kadian has made it clear that he has been giving in to him just now. Now he's taking the initiative to show his kindness. But he's yelling here, what's wrong with him? Even the teacher couldn't stand it anymore. Bo, the outcome has been decided, please shake hands with your classmates and make peace. Naganomi has lost his mind. Why are the teachers and everyone favoring that guy? His eyes were bloodshot, and he pointed at Kakashi viciously and said, Lousy just can't stand how aloof you look. The son of the useless White Fang, what can you be proud of? Obito was shocked when he heard this. He looked around. I found that some people looked confused and had no idea what Naganoha was talking about. But some people looked a little weird, obviously they knew something inside. Obito noticed it keenly. These people's families have more or less ninja connections. Misaka. A bad thought passed through Obito's mind. Could it be the news that Konoha's White Fang mission failed? Has it spread among the ninja circles? It's not good to go on like this. Although rumors are rootless fire, they will burn stronger and stronger. It will not gradually subside until it devours the tragic hero. Just when Obito was secretly wondering, the teacher looked ugly and said coldly, That's enough, Naganoha. If you lose, you lose. Personal attacks on your classmates will only make everyone look down on you. Naganomi didn't stop. Teacher, why don't you let me say it? It seems that he is afraid that people around him will not know about the glorious deeds of Konoha's White Fang. His voice became louder and louder, and he spoke to everyone present. The trash White Fang actually gave up on completing the mission for the sake of his friends, causing the village to suffer huge losses. As a member of Konoha, I think I have the right to condemn his behavior. Because his selfish desires drag down the collective, what is this kind of person other than trash? Kakashi's body trembled. His eyes were fierce, like a devouring beast. He wanted to teach Naganoha a lesson. But remembering his father's instructions, he could only suppress the anger in his heart. Seeing his aggrieved look, Naganoha breathed out a sigh of relief and felt in a good mood. You are not usually calm and calm. Does Lousy look like the best in the world? Are you going to stop pretending? As the son of such a loser, I really don't know what you are so proud of every day. Especially when Naganoha found out. The female classmates who usually admired Kakashi changed their eyes when looking at Kakashi. Not to mention how happy I feel. Lin looked at the lonely figure with some worry. Kakashi-kun. Guy wanted to say a few words for Kakashi. I was so clumsy that I couldn't hold back a single word for a long time. The teacher let out a long sigh. Tsukumo-senpai dedicated half his life to the village. In the end, but being criticized by a young boy is really. There was coldness in his eyes. Haha, Naganoha. As long as Lousy is here, your kid will never graduate. I didn't expect Kakashi-kun's father to be. You think so? Yeah, this is really. Listening to the comments of the people around me gradually changed. Obito shook his head in disappointment. He knew why the dazzling White Fang chose to commit suicide. What people say is scary. The way he looked at Naganoha became increasingly unkind. It's obvious that my skills are inferior to others, yet I still mess with the rhythm. Lousy can't stand it anymore. Naganoha was looking proud of YY. Kakashi will be a loser from now on, and no one will like him anymore. Then who should girls admire in the future? Needless to say. Naturally, this is the big one. All fight. A figure rushed out from the crowd. A flying kick in the air knocked Naganoha away. Naganoha got up from the ground and turned around with a look of disbelief. Obito, are you crazy? How dare you attack me? Obito spat on the ground disdainfully. I think you're the one who's crazy. A loser who only knows how to beep, and you're also making irresponsible remarks about Konoha's White Fang senpai. While he was working for the village, you were still in your father's crotch. Naganoha was speechless for a moment. You. Obito picked his nose and said, What are you, what am I? Oh, I know what you want to say. With your wisdom, you don't quite understand what I'm talking about, right? Then why don't we just have a fight and kill the sparrow? Say it. Obito formed the seal of opposition on his hands and looked at Naganomi with a provocative expression. Naganoha's little face was twisted. Even if Kakashi slaps me in the face, you, Obito, want to join in the fun, so hit me. You, a fool who has no father or mother, have no right to fight with me. Naganoha couldn't even form a seal. He immediately rushed towards Obito with a ferocious smile. Kakashi looked at this scene with some confusion. Too many changes happened today. Even though he was young and precocious, it was a little hard to accept for a while. The teacher stood aside. He watched the situation develop and did not choose to intervene. Although there is a high probability that Obito will not be Naganoha's opponent. But what if? You know, Obito is the #1 surprise. Maybe he can really teach Naganoha a lesson that he will never forget. The teacher looked at Obito with a hint of expectation. Obito, this is the first time that the teacher has high hopes for you. Can you give the teacher a surprise? Lin's little hands grasped the hem of her skirt. She knows what level Obito is. Even at his best, he would never be a match for Naganoha. Not to mention that he was beaten violently by Guy for a long time just now. Obito-kun is so impulsive. But the way he stood up for Kakashi just now seemed a bit handsome. In the eyes of everyone with different thoughts, Naganoha's fist had already landed heavily on Obito. The attack was close, but Obito didn't panic. If it were him before, he would indeed be no match for Naganoha. But right now, obtained Genin level taijutsu. He just wants to say one thing now. All of you here are primary school students. Lousy can punch a child, okay. Ahem, of course Kakashi and Guy are not included. The thoughts flashed through my mind. Facing the oncoming punch, Obito stepped forward to meet Naganomi and clamped one hand on Naganomi's arm. Then he turned around quickly, twisted his shoulders, and gave him a neat over-the-shoulder throw. Ah, some girls exclaimed. In her expectation, it was Obito who was thrown to the ground. Unexpectedly, the person who fell to the ground turned out to be the little bully in the class. Naganoha sat on the ground, his brain shutting down again. What just happened? He took the initiative with full confidence, but was subdued by the crane tail in front of him. Anger welled up from his heart. Naganoha's face turned red to the root of her neck. Obito, the poor guy from 10,000 years, dared to humiliate me. Lousy must make him pay a heavy price. Naganomi stood up and stared at Obito with burning eyes. If he didn't check for a moment, how could Obito be his opponent? He said viciously, I was careless just now and I'm going to let you know the gap between us now. Obito didn't take it seriously and chuckled. It's normal for elementary school students to say harsh things. It's just that his tone sounds a bit like a 69-year-old comrade. Under anger, Naganoha calmed down instead. He cautiously moved around Obito, as if he was looking for Obito's flaws. The teacher saw this scene and sighed secretly. To be honest, just now, Obito was able to catch Naganoha by surprise, which was beyond his expectation. Now Naganomi got serious. Obito, this unlucky kid, is probably going to get beaten again. He walked to the two of them calmly. He planned to stop the duel in time when Obito lost. Nagano waved around Obito for a long time, but he didn't find any flaws. While the footsteps are moving, he accidentally stepped on a depression in the ground and lost his center of gravity and fell backwards. When Obito saw this, he immediately rushed forward without doubting his presence. Who knows, the next moment, Naganoha suddenly stabilized his figure. He faced Obito with a sneer and punched him again. I didn't expect it. The flaw just now was left to you intentionally. When I get serious, you can't bear it. Go to hell, Crane. Snapped. A crisp slap sounded. Naganomi covered her cheeks and was stunned for once. Obito chuckled. You only see the second layer and think of me as the first layer. But actually, Brother Tuzi, I'm on the 5th floor. Seduce a being whose physical skills are far superior to yours, and let the other person get closer to you. What are you thinking? Didn't you know that hunters often appear as prey? Don't underestimate us, you idiot. This time, Obito doesn't intend to give Naganoha a chance to regroup. Otherwise it will look too watery. While Nagano was stunned, Obito went up and gave him a BABAQWER. EDG awesome. He shouted lines that no one else could understand. Obito outputted wildly against Naganoha. After a while, Even the teacher can't stand it anymore. Ahem, Obito-san, it's okay, that's it. Only then did Obito stop, still not satisfied. He glanced at Naganoha on the ground. Then he looked around at the classmates who seemed to be meeting him for the first time. He suddenly felt that the atmosphere had reached this point and he needed to say something. I know that in everyone's eyes, ninjas who violate the rules and fail to complete their tasks are nothing more than trash. But those who don't cherish their companions are worse than trash. I think Konoha's White Fang is a real hero. Obito's words were so powerful that Kakashi trembled when he heard them. There was a strange look in Obito's eyes, and a pop-up box appeared on his head, favorability +1. Obito smiled secretly in his heart when he saw this. If he could gain Kakashi's favor, it would be worth it to stand up for him this time. In the crowd, a little fat guy who usually played well with Naganoha said loudly. But he sacrificed the interests of the whole village for a few people. Is this approach worthy of praise? Yes. Many people looked at Obito again with doubts in their eyes. Obito snorted coldly. Could it be that these people you are talking about are not my compatriots in Konoha? It's quite easy to say. If it were your parents who were on the mission, would you still be able to say this so decisively? The little fat man's face froze. He wanted to express his filial piety twice. It's just for the sake of the village, so why do parents care about it? But when he thought of what his parents looked like, he really couldn't do it. Obito said with some disinterest. So, everyone can stay rational when the matter has nothing to do with them. But if it's your dearest relatives and friends who are on a mission, how will you choose? Ahem. If nothing else, at least you have to pay more. The little people around them all lowered their heads in shame. They asked themselves, if the ninja on the mission this time is one of his relatives, they should make the same decision as White Fang. See this. Obito spread his hands and said, let's just say that what White Fang did may not be right, but it is definitely not wrong either. Because it's human nature for him to do what he did. The teacher listened to Obito's words in silence. He took the lead in applauding again. He looked at the figure standing in the field, feeling a little dazed for a moment. Did those profound words just now really come from the mouth of this unlucky child? It always feels a bit inconsistent. In the complicated eyes of everyone. Obito was dressed in black, standing with his hands behind his back, trying very hard to look like a foreigner. But it's a pity. When you have a blue nose and swollen eyes, you insist on holding a cup, which looks inexplicably funny. Many people think this is right. This funny guy is the Obito everyone is familiar with. Naganoha had already stood up from the ground. His face was not very pretty, and he was obviously a bit embarrassed. But he said it very seriously. I just made a mistake by insulting White Fang. But we will settle the debt later when you beat me up. After saying that, he got into the crowd dejectedly. The teacher originally wanted to persuade Naganoha and Obito to shake hands and make peace, forming a seal of reconciliation. But looking at the shoe prints on Naganohami's face, I think this matter may be beyond my ability. The teacher changed the topic. So who will be the next group? Comma. The showdown continues. Obito hummed a little tune and walked towards the toilet. After feeling refreshed, Obito washed his hands in front of the sink and was about to leave. Suddenly a watermelon head walked out of the toilet. He looked at Obito's wet hands and laughed. Obito-kun, you peed on your hands too. Obito. Guy turned on the faucet, washed his hands, and then splashed cold water on his face, which made him feel good. Obito looked up to the sky and laughed 3 times. Ha ha ha, Guy-san, I didn't expect you to be braver than me, and you actually got it on your face. Guy. Evening. Obito is walking on his way home. While walking, I suddenly slapped myself. Shimada, I won't. Get into trouble. This afternoon, he was so enthusiastic that he said a lot of good things about Konoha's White Fang. If this falls into the ears of some old silver coin. After realizing it, he shuddered, curled his neck and looked around. I always feel like a rude ninja will suddenly emerge from the shadows. Then he clicked himself with a grin. He warned himself secretly. Obito, please keep a low profile from now on. Before you have enough strength, you must not waste any more. This world is really going to die. Hey, I've finished pretending to be B, I still have to be cowardly. Outside a medium-sized house. A little silver-haired boy pushed open the door and entered. Father, I'm back. A middle-aged man walked out after hearing this. He also has flowing silver hair with a ponytail tied behind his head. He has handsome features and a dignified appearance, but there is a hint of tiredness in his eyebrows. This person is Konoha's White Fang, who is famous in the ninja world. He is also the father of Hatake Kakashi, Hatake Tsukumo. See your son come back. His bloodless face forced a smile. How did you do in school today? Did you not embarrass your father? Kakashi was silent for a while, a trace of heartache flashed in his eyes. Former father. Just standing there is like a sharp blade, which makes people dare not look directly. But the tall and straight figure in the past now looks a bit rickety. The once high-spirited eyes were gone. What replaced it was the lingering shadow between his eyebrows. Kakashi spoke slowly. Father, in school today, someone mentioned your mission failure. The smile on Tsukumo's face froze. Yes, really. Unexpectedly, this matter has spread to the ninja school. I don't need my own son to tell me. Tsukumo can also roughly guess the content of other people's words. It was nothing more than accusing himself of violating regulations, abandoning tasks, and causing the village to suffer huge losses. Because he has heard similar words countless times these days. What saddened him the most was, even the companions he saved are now blaming him. Tsukumo let out a long breath. But the depression in my heart cannot be resolved. Could it be that I was really wrong? Kakashi said softly. Some people say you failed to complete the task and are a waste. Really? Hatake Tsukumo's eyes dimmed, and he felt a little guilty at the same time. Because of his own fault, it affected his son. This made him, a father, feel very sorry. I'm sorry, Kakashi. Father, please listen to me first. Kakashi interrupted Tsukumo and said seriously. When one person calls you a loser, another person contradicts him. If he said that a ninja who cannot complete his mission is a loser, then a guy who doesn't cherish his companions is worse than a loser. He also said that in his heart, Konoha's White Fang is a real hero. Tsukumo's tiger body trembled, and disbelief flashed in his eyes. Kakashi, you didn't lie to your father, did you? So many days have passed. This was the first time he heard someone affirm his approach. Kakashi nodded affirmatively. Of course not, and you should have seen this person before. His name is Uchiha Obito. And he's kind of my friend. Tsukumo said with a complicated expression. Son, you have made a good friend. I didn't expect the first light in the darkness. It came from a little guy who was the same age as his own son. This made Tsukumo feel dumbfounded. After his son returns to the house, Tsukumo's face turned serious. It wasn't until these few days that he became aware of it. It seems that I have unintentionally blocked someone's path, and this is why I am targeted everywhere. If it can't be broken, it doesn't matter that he is ruined, but Kakashi. Thinking of this, his eyes became profound. Hokage office. Third generation is currently sitting at his desk. He held the cup of wolfberry water he had just brewed and took a sip happily. Hey, Hiruzen felt a little emotional. When I was young, I never believed this. What kind of people in middle age have no choice but to soak wolfberries in a thermos cup? But now I am getting older. Not only do I have to deal with official duties during the day, but I also have to go home and deal with my wife at night. I can't keep up with my energy. Dong dong dong. There was a knock on the door. Third generation hid the thermos cup and said calmly. Please come in. Seeing the person coming, third generation said with a smile. Kazuki, why are you free today and why do you come to see me? Come, sit down and talk. Urahara Kazuki, the homeroom teacher of Kakashi and Obito's class. Kazuki nodded, sat down opposite third generation, pondered for a moment and then said. Master third generation, I may have found another good idea. Third generation was a little surprised. Oh, which little guy is it? It's a student named Uchiha Obito. Kazuki replied. He today. Kazuki recounted Obito's performance today exactly as it was in the third generation song. After third generation finished listening, his eyes moved slightly. So, this little guy from the Uchiha clan is indeed a talented person. Kazuki, you should be more careful with him in the future. Never mind whether what Tsukumo did was right or wrong. Obito has already understood the meaning of protection at a young age. This is very rare. You must know that the essence of the will of fire lies in this protection and inheritance. I understand, third generation Sama. Urahara Kazuki nodded in agreement. Immediately, he seemed to have thought of something and was a little confused. But, didn't you already give the order to block the information about Senior White Fang's failure? Why is this news still spreading? Urahara Kazuki has a special identity and knows some things that ordinary people don't know. It is precisely because of this that he is somewhat difficult to understand. Third generation had a headache and rubbed his eyebrows. I'm as clueless as you are about this. Halfway through the sentence, third generation suddenly noticed that there was a hint of suspicion in Kazuki's eyes. He was stunned for a moment, then frowned. Do you think it was me who secretly spread this matter? Kazuki smiled awkwardly. No, I never doubted you, it's just. After Kazuki hesitated for a while, he said bravely. It's just that recently in the ninja circle, there are rumors that Senior White Fang was targeted because he was too popular and overshadowed you, so. The third generation target's face turned gloomy, as black as a pot. He didn't say anything and just looked at Kazuki with a sullen face. Gouda. Kazuki swallowed the next half of the sentence, stood up somewhat sarcastically and said. Well, I came here today to report to you about my recent teaching work. I suddenly remembered that there was still food burning on the fire at home. How about I? Third generation waved its hands angrily. Go, get out of here. Kazuki rushed out of the door as if he was being pardoned. After he left, third generation took out his bong. While puffing away the clouds, I started to think. The recent situation in Konoha can be described as turbulent. Who is this person hiding in the dark, stirring up the storm? To be honest, Hiruzen himself is very speechless about these nonsense rumors. All these years, his contribution to Konoha can be said to be irreplaceable. It was under his leadership that Konoha was able to win the Second Ninja War. The new generation of strong men who emerged during this period all grew up under his cultivation. Even Hatake Tsukumo can be considered half of his student. Not to mention Tsukumo's current achievements, they are still close to him. With his qualifications and connections, so what if Tsukumo gets him? I didn't make any mistakes. Can Tsukumo still take the credit and force himself to abdicate? Don't I know Tsukumo's character better than you do? Is there any need to fear him seizing power? I personally gave the order to block the information about Tsukumo's mission failure. Hello. I really don't know what everyone is thinking. But this is the reason why rumors are so disgusting. Most people don't have the ability to spot rumors. They will just continue to spread the rumors. Third generation took a deep puff of cigarette and narrowed his eyes slightly. If we look at these two rumors together, the people behind the scenes are trying to kill two birds with one stone. Could it be him? Third generation rapped the table with his bong. An Anbu ninja walked outside the door and walked into the room. He half knelt on the ground and asked in a low voice. Master third generation, what are your orders? Third generation said with a smile. I haven't seen my old friend for a long time. Please go to the roots for a trip. Yes, the Anbu nodded slightly, stood up and walked outside. Not long after, a figure wearing gray robes and holding a cane walked into Hokage's office. The right side of his face was wrapped in a bandage, and the exposed left eye was slightly closed, as if he was not interested in anything in the world. Shimura Danzo, Hiruzen's good gay friend when he was young, now an old gay friend. He asked calmly, Hiruzen, why did you call me here late at night? Third generation pointed to the freshly brewed tea on the table and said with a smile. Shikaku gave me the good tea a few days ago, and I specially asked you to come and try it today. Danzo raised his eyebrows slightly, said nothing, and sat across from third generation. He picked up the teacup in his hand and sipped the tea slowly. After a while, he put down the teacup in his hand and got straight to the point. Hiruzen, if you have something to worry about, just tell me. I haven't finished my fundamental matters yet, so I don't have time to sit here with you. Third generation took a sip of tea and pretended to be casual. Then let me get straight to the point. Have you heard the rumors about Tsukumo in the village recently? Danzo nodded. Furui Muhadao. Even you know about it, so I've naturally heard about it. Third generation snorted coldly, feeling a little unhappy at the secret provocation from his gay friend. Since you are well informed, have you found out who leaked the secret? Danzo shook his head and said, I asked my men to look around, but so far they have found nothing. Looking at Hiruzen's slightly unhappy face, he seemed to suddenly realize something and frowned slightly. Do you suspect that I leaked the news? Third generation hummed in disbelief and stared at Danzo with deep eyes. So, is it you? Danzo's heart trembled, and after a moment of silence, he spoke. This matter has nothing to do with me. It will do me no good to bring down Tsukumo. Third generation nodded vaguely and said nothing. Danzo felt a little anxious and pounded the ground heavily with his cane. Hiruzen, we have been friends for so many years, and you still can't trust me. If anyone would do this, I have a suspicious target. Third generation held up his teacup and waited for Danzo's next words. Tell me the story. Danzo looked directly into the eyes of third generation and said in a serious tone. Don't forget that there are guys from the Uchiha clan in Tsukumo's team. If their clan wants to run for the next Hokage, Tsukumo will definitely be their strong opponent. Uchiha. Third generation took a sip of tea calmly, suppressing the surprise in his heart. After a while, he returned to his calm demeanor and said with a smile. Don't you still have things waiting for you to deal with at the root? I won't keep you here. Go back first, Danzo. Danzo nodded upon hearing this. He took a deep look at third generation and then left without looking back. After he left, third generation rubbed his eyebrows. It's getting more and more confusing. Who could it be? The next morning, the sunlight quietly crossed the window and climbed onto the face of the sleeping boy. The young man groaned and turned over without any intention of getting up. At this time, there was a voice outside the house. Obito, Xiaolin is here to pick you up from school. The boy suddenly sat up from the bed. After changing clothes as quickly as possible, he walked out of his room. Seeing that her grandson was finally willing to get up, Grandma breathed a sigh of relief. She stuffed a small lunch box for each of Rin and Obito. This is breakfast just made by Grandma. It's getting late. You and Xiaolin are eating on the way. Lin said with a smile. Thank you, Grandma, let's go then. Grandma's brows and eyes were full of smiles, and it was obvious that she liked Lin very much. Hey, okay. Lin took Obito's little hand. Then let's go, Obito-kun. Happiness came suddenly, and Obito's brain shut down for a moment. This was the first time in his life that he held a girl's hand. Hold the little girl's hand. ... It still seems like something is not quite right. Let's go, Grandma. Okay, you two, please slow down on the road. Walk on the road. Obito was eating his breakfast and looked at Lin beside him curiously. Lin-chan, why did you come to pick me up from school today? Lin finished the last bite of breakfast, wiped her mouth gracefully, and then said. You've been late lately. I'm a little worried about you. Obito chuckled, feeling warm in his heart. Apart from Grandma, Lin should be the person who cares about her the most. I will definitely protect you in this life, he thought silently. Lin asked curiously, by the way, Obito-kun, how come your taijutsu improves so quickly? Obito thought for a while and explained. Actually, I have been practicing secretly at night recently. That's why I always have no energy and am sleeping when I go to class during the day. Lin nodded thoughtfully. Is that so? But Obito-kun seems to have been falling asleep in class since the beginning of school. Obito coughed twice and chose to change the topic. Ahem, Lin-chan, why do you look better today? Lin's face turned red. As expected, she was led astray by Obito. Is there any? Obito nodded seriously. Some. Strange to say, on the way to school with Lin, Obito didn't even meet an old woman. Maybe when the opponent captures people, they only capture orders. Obito secretly complained. When the teacher saw Obito, he appeared in his seat on time. He rubbed his eyes in disbelief. It seems that Obito has really come to his senses. However, this child's recent changes seem to be a bit drastic. The teacher immediately fell into deep thought, and then slapped his head in shock. Misaka, my sincere teachings must have worked. Being able to bring a child as outrageous as Obito onto the right track. Apart from him, Urahara Kazuki, Who else can do this in the education world as a whole? Laozi asked. Who else? Just when the teacher is intoxicated with himself. Ho, ho. Obito-kun, wake up, it's time to go to class. The teacher's expression froze. It seems that I still have a long way to go. With amazing perseverance, Obito managed to finish the whole morning's class. This performance gave Kazuki some comfort. Get out of class is about to end. Urahara Kazuki clapped his hands, attracting the little people's attention. Students, the teacher has something important to announce. The annual exam is just over a month away. I hope everyone can. Before Kazuki could finish his words, the little people below were already wailing. I have another exam. Yes, the last exam was obviously the last time, so why is it taking another exam so soon? I can't give birth to a human being. No, I am born a human being. I'm sorry. Obito snickered secretly. Everyone in my class is talented, and they speak nicely and interestingly. Urahara Kazuki was somewhat helpless in maintaining order. Everyone, be quiet. Wait until the little people calm down. He then continued. I hope everyone will make good use of this last period of time, study hard, get good grades, and bring glory to our class. If you do well this time, the teacher will pay for it out of his own pocket and treat everyone to a big dinner. The little people exchanged glances with each other. Yo, that sounds pretty good. You can't escape the exam anyway, why don't you study for it? Obito was distracted when three choices suddenly appeared in front of him. Option 1. Maintain the distinguished status of the crane tail, and who else will be the last one than me? Completion reward. The wrath at the end of the crane. The anger at the end of the crane. When facing an opponent with a higher score than yourself, the SAN value is -1. Option 2. Look at her 100 times, she is not yours. But read the book 100 times, and the knowledge is yours. Study hard and become the top 3 in the class. Completion reward. Fire style comprehension +1. Option 3. I would rather exhaust myself to death than exhaust my classmates to death. Become the top 3 in the class with the first average grade in the class. Completion reward. Fire style comprehension +5. Obito gasped and contributed to global warming. What kind of anger is this Jiba thing at the end of the crane? Nothing to say, just pass it first. Options 2 and 3 look like. Obviously option 2 is less difficult. So I choose option 3. The moment the decision is made, Obito's eyes suddenly showed a vicissitude that was inconsistent with those of his peers. Why, I didn't expect that when I came to this world, I would also experience involution. That's all. Let me show you the horror of my Chinese students. Experience the fear of being dominated. Roll. As long as you can't roll to death, roll to death. Obito raised his hand nervously. Teacher, I have a question. Urahara Kazuki's heart skipped a beat. What kind of trouble is Obito doing? He slightly raised his head towards Obito with some vigilance, indicating that he had to fart quickly. Obito stood up. Looking at the students around me, I felt a little melancholy. We are still classmates now, but we may become enemies in a while. Just when he hesitated, the little people around him began to whisper. Obito, what kind of evil idea does this guy have? Academic A pushed up his glasses and raised the corners of his mouth in disdain. Needless to say, I must be looking for reasons for myself not to study. It's not the first time. Academic Master B sighed with deep approval. Hey, why are we so unlucky to be assigned to the same class as this crane tail? After getting to know him, I realized that a person can actually do it and lower the class average by 10 points. Shueba A nodded sadly. Yes, if it weren't for the 2 talents of you and me in the class. I'm afraid our class will fall from second to last to first. I heard the 2 people talking. The guilt in Obito's heart immediately disappeared. He said with a smile. Ms. Kazuki, I think you left too little homework today. Let's just say, since the annual exam is coming soon, why can't the workload be doubled? The whole classroom fell into a brief silence. All the little people were shocked. Obito must be sick. The corners of Kazuki's mouth turned up higher and higher. He found that he liked Obito more and more. Since Obito said so, it seems that the teacher did leave a little less homework today. Everyone, open the textbook now. I'll leave you with a few more questions. Outrageous. The little people opened the textbooks reluctantly, and each of them wanted to kill Obito with their eyes. Fortunately, Urahara Kazuki only marked 5 6 questions, which made them somewhat relieved. Okay, apart from the few questions just now, the rest is today's homework, Kazuki said with a smile. Nani, Obito, you are not a son of man. When the teacher walked out of the classroom with a smile on his face, Kakashi hesitated for a moment and was about to get up and go find Obito to say something. In the end, one person got ahead of him. I saw Nagano wave hitting the table and getting up. He walked up to Obito and said viciously, Obito, let's meet in the woods tonight and settle my old and new grudges with you. Obito pouted. What grudges do we have? Yesterday was the peak of your life, you know. Dare to shout 6th Hokage and provoke the great devil of the ninja world. Looking at the entire ninja world, only Zabuza can compare with you. Just have some fun. As for today's matter, what's wrong with letting you learn more knowledge? Isn't this all for your own good? With this thought in his mind, Obito said, okay, see you in the woods tonight. Don't run away and make me look down on you. Nagano Wave snorted coldly. HMPH, I'll give you the same words. He puffed up his chest proudly and left like a hero. Lin whispered worriedly, Obito-kun, do you really want to fight Naganoha? Obito said with a smile. How is that possible? Of course I was doing my homework at home at night. I just fooled that kid. Lin felt relieved and said with a smile. You are so evil, Obito-kun. Obito chuckled. Boys are not bad, but girls are not loving. Obito and Lin were having a lively chat. A glance out of the corner of my eye noticed Guy standing next to Kakashi with a longing look on his face. I didn't know what I was talking to Kakashi, so I was dancing happily. Cuff. The boy is by my side. Obito looked around and suddenly realized. It seems like it's not just Kakashi and Guy. The boys in the class seem to be playing in pairs. I am the only one chatting with girls. Hiss. Obito was lost in thought. In this world full of love and brotherhood, he seemed a little out of place. And speaking of it, the guy who falls in love in the Hokage. Counting one of them, the end seems not to be very good. What a blast, Asuma. Obito suddenly looked sad. Why don't you and Lin take the lead? I don't know if I recognize this will of the universe, it's difficult to deal with. It's late at night, the moon and stars are sparse. A melancholy voice sang a heartbreaking melody. If you are willing to open my homework layer by layer, you will be surprised. This page is not written, that page is not written, all of them are not written. The old man's helpless voice came. Obito, Grandma just fell asleep, and you woke her up again. Obito shouted outside the house somewhat sarcastically. Sorry Grandma, please rest quickly, I won't make any sound. Looking at the endless homework in front of him, Obito sighed. Hey, I seem to have lost my temper. Is it possible for one person to finish writing so much? In the future, I have to be careful when I'm alone in school. There are probably a lot of people who want to kill me now. After inking for a while, Obito slapped the table and stood up. No more writing, let's just do this. He resolutely put away his homework and plunged into his soft little bed. Anyway, no matter how much you write, as long as you hand in the homework, you will be giving face to Mr. Kazuki. Yes, this is the appearance of his native brother. After lying on the bed for a while, two options appeared in front of him. Option 1. Are you there? He is asleep. Come to practice. Completion reward. 0.01 card chakra. Option 2. Go to sleep. Staying up late affects your development. Even the sparrows have great ambitions. Completion reward. 0.01 card chakra. Obito drowsily chose option 2. In his days, he always felt as if he had forgotten something. Ho, ho. The next morning, Grandma's voice came from outside the house. Obito, get up quickly, Xiaolin is waiting for you. As soon as he heard that his sweetheart was coming, Obito got out of bed with a sudden sound. Wait a minute, I'm coming. Obito got up early today and had plenty of time. After the three of them had breakfast together, Obito held Lin's little hand, left home, and rushed towards school. Living together in Konoha, the two childhood sweethearts are guessing. He and Lin were childhood sweethearts, Obito thought to himself. Seeing the innocent smile on Lin's face, he felt something in his heart. If I could be with Lin every day, I could live a peaceful life like this. Then I will definitely be very happy. But Obito knows that this beauty will not last long. Somewhere in this world, a crisis that is about to sweep the entire ninja world is quietly brewing. No one can stay out of it. And I am the first to bear the brunt. So even if there is a system, you can't take it lightly. Arrived at the classroom, Obito felt like there was a light on his back, and more than one person was glaring at him. If looks could kill, he might have died a dozen times. Obito shrank his neck and sat in his seat. What is this? Obito suddenly found a small package in his drawer. He took out the package and opened it curiously. I found several cartons of milk and a small note inside. The note said thank you, but it was not signed. Obito thought for a moment and sneered. Do you think this little trick can deceive my brother Tuzi? If my guess is correct, there must be something wrong with this milk. He just threw the package away with the milk. Then he returned to his seat triumphantly. Totally oblivious. Not far away, Kakashi's little face turned dark. Not a moment later, Urahara Kazuki walked into the classroom with books under his arm. Classmates, let's start class. Naganoami's loyal little follower, the little fat man raised his hand and said. Teacher, Naganoha hasn't come yet, Kazuki said while writing on the blackboard. Naganoha-san has a cold and has already asked for leave from the teacher. Obito suddenly realized. He knew he had forgotten something last night. The relationship is such that I have forgotten Nagano wave. He shook his head and began to listen carefully to Kazuki's lecture. For weeks, everyone was shocked to find out. Obito actually started studying seriously. He sits more upright than anyone else in class and answers questions faster than anyone else. Many people find it difficult to understand Obito's rapid progress. But Obito himself said that he should not do 6 things. For him who has experienced compulsory education. The things Mr. Kazuki teaches in class are simply child's play. Can the history of the ninja world be as difficult to remember as China's thousands of years? When I first watched the anime, I remembered it clearly. Not to mention the history in the textbooks, I know everything that is not in the textbooks. Physics, chemistry and biology are not mentioned, and mathematical calculations are even simpler. The most difficult question is just a system of quadratic equations in 2 variables. As for Konoha's ideological education courses, Obito recited a paragraph from his past life textbook, and it was more profound than what the teacher taught. The only thing that needs to be learned is some simple common sense of ninjutsu. What should I say? Just have hands. Shueba A is quite frightened by this situation. Why is this guy progressing so fast? He's going to chase me soon. Academic Master B nodded in agreement. This kid is so terrifying. The two looked at each other and made up their minds at the same time. Learn to death. No matter what, you can't let a person behind a crane run in front of you. Many people have this idea. The learning atmosphere in Kazuki's class immediately became exciting. And this is exactly what Obito expected. A month goes by in a blink of an eye. This day, overcast and drizzling, the bleak environment seems to be a reflection of the little guy's inner feelings. Because today is the annual exam. Inside the classroom, 4 Chunin teachers strolled back and forth, put an end to all small actions that should not exist. The children all had sad faces and scratched their heads and ears anxiously. They say that if you push someone into a hurry, you can do anything. But obviously the questions on the test paper are not included here. After Obito got the test paper, he wrote vigorously and confidently. Soon, I finished writing the test paper. This question is really not difficult at all, he muttered quietly. After being a little bored for a while, Obito came up with the idea of handing in his papers and leaving the game early. Etc. He suddenly smiled evilly. It's so boring to hand in papers in advance. It's better to mess with people's mentality here. He picked up his paper and started turning over it. Wow. Many students were panicked. Why did I just do 2 questions and so many people turned over? Kazuki noticed this. He slapped Obito's head angrily. You kid, stop making trouble here and check the test paper carefully. Have you finished filling out the answer sheets? Obito's expression froze. Answer sheet? What answer sheet? Quote. Kazuki was speechless. He took an answer sheet from the podium and handed it to Obito. You kid didn't even get the answer sheet, and you're still here acting bad. If you come last in the exam again this time, you will have to stand and listen to me in class from now on. There was a burst of laughter in the classroom. Obito scratched his head in embarrassment. Teacher, I am rushing to be in the top 3 this time. As soon as he said this, the laughter in the classroom became louder. Kazuki didn't even know what to say. Although Obito has been very motivated to study recently, the top 3 spots are really hard for him. Naganoha burst into laughter. Just you. If you get into the top 3, I will take your last name from now on. After Obito pondered for a moment, he slowly said, but I don't care if you have my last name. How about, let your son have my last name in the future. Quote. 8 Yalu. After Naganomi reacted, he slapped the table angrily and stood up, carrying the bench and rushing towards Obito. Give it to me, Shine. Obito shouted exaggeratedly. Kazuki-sensei, help. There was a lot of excitement in the classroom, and the atmosphere suddenly became cheerful. Chapter 11. After the theoretical exam is over, there is the practical assessment session. For first-year students, this session only tests one item. That is the shuriken throwing assessment. A row of targets has been set up on the playground, waiting for the little people to come forward and test them one by one. The scoring rules are as follows. Each person throws 10 shurikens. Each shuriken hit by 1 ring is worth 1 point, and so on. 10 rings equal 10 points. A perfect score of 100 points. Hitaki Kakashi, 100 points. Might Guy, 69 points. Nohara Rin, 67. Naganoha, 83 points. Naganomi walked back to the team with a proud look on his face. He pointed his middle finger at Obito provocatively. Cut. Obito curled his lips and replied with some Chinese quintessence. Next, Uchiha Obito. Hear your own name. Obito perked up and strode to stand in front of the target. The teacher in charge of the assessment said with a smile when he saw Obito. Oh, it turns out it's your boy. Although children often miss the target when throwing shuriken. But Obito is the only one who can miss the mark with all 10 shurikens. The teacher warned with some worry. Boy, please aim better this time. Don't throw it at the teacher's face again. Obito chuckled, his cheeks raised slightly, and a smile tucked at the corner of his mouth. Teacher, you are too small. 3 days after separation, I will look at you with admiration. I am no longer the same person as before. My goal is, perfect score. After pretending to be X, Obito started throwing shurikens with a swish, swish sound. He possesses genin-level physical skills, coupled with recent hard training. His throwing level is naturally not the same as before. Wait for Obito to stop. The teacher glanced at the target and announced with some surprise. Uchiha Obito, 90 points. The young man has really made great progress. Well, Obito scratched his head in embarrassment. I blew out the perfect score, but accidentally shot 2 shots. Forget it, as long as I'm not embarrassed, I'm not afraid of making mistakes and pretending to be B. In fact, a score of 90% is already very good. Except for Kakashi's pervert, this is already considered the top level. After all the villains finished testing, a teacher said loudly. The results of the annual exam will be announced in a week. There will be no homework for you this week. Please relax. Remember to come on time next week. Before the teacher finished speaking, he was drowned out by the cheers of the little people. Woohoo, yada, comma. Lin approached Obito and asked with her big eyes blinking. Obito-kun, do you have any plans for your vacation? Obito thought for a moment and shook his head. Well, not yet. How about we go and play at my house? My house is quite big. Just when Obito wanted to invite the little loli to play at his home during the holidays, an unexpected figure walked beside him. Lin was stunned for a moment, then asked in surprise. Kakashi-kun, I am discussing vacation arrangements with Obito. Do you want to join us? Kakashi ignored Lin and faced Obito. My father wants to invite you to my house for dinner at 7 o'clock tonight. Kakashi just finished speaking. A multiple-choice question appeared in front of Obito's eyes. Option 1. How can a bad old man have the fragrance of my little Lolita? Don't go, don't go. Completion reward. LSP value +1. Option 2. Women will only affect the speed at which I draw the sword. Go to White Fang for advice on sword skills. Completion reward. Start subsequent tasks. This is the first time Obito has seen option 2, a reward that starts subsequent tasks. After some hesitation, he chose option 2. Okay, thank your father for me first, he said to Kakashi. Kakashi said, He nodded slightly to Lin on the side as a greeting. Then, he left on his own. Obito glanced at the unhappy little loli and said in a feigned indignation. Kakashi, this guy is still as cold as ever, and he treats my lovely Lin-chan like this. Lin's face turned red and she groaned. Obito-kun is making fun of me again. Obito said seriously. No way, Lin-chan is the cutest existence in my heart. After coaxing the little loli for a while, Obito walked home. If you go out to eat at night, you have to tell grandma in advance. 6:30 in the evening. Obito set out from home and went to the appointment with his head shaking. On the top of the willow branches in the moonlight, people meet after dusk. It's a pity that you is not a beautiful sister, but a middle-aged uncle. But why did Senior White Fang invite me there? Obito thought about it and estimated that it was the most likely. Tsukumo knew what he said in support of him. I feel that I am a good junior. That's why he invited himself to his house for dinner. Thinking about things in your head. Obito quickly walked to Kakashi's door. Outside a medium-sized house. A figure has been standing there for a long time, as if waiting for him. Obito waved his hand towards the figure. I'm coming, Kakashi. Kakashi responded lightly and turned around without looking at Kaido. Come with me. Obito hurriedly followed, looking around curiously. The furnishings in Kakashi's home are very simple, but they give people a very warm feeling. Obito glanced at the picture of Kakashi's childhood on the wall. It's so cute, just like a little silver fur ball. As if he heard movement, there were footsteps in the house. A handsome silver-haired man walked out of the house. Although he looked a little haggard, he could not hide the heroic spirit in his brows. Hatake Tsukumo, he said to Obito with a smile. You are little Obito, I often hear Kakashi mention you. Obito nodded and said a little sheepishly. Hello White Fang Senpai, my name is Obito. You must have heard Kakashi tell a lot of embarrassing things about me. When Kakashi heard this, his tender face turned red under the mask. Tsukumo laughed even louder and rubbed his son's head. It's not really embarrassing, but I heard him say a few interesting things. Let's sit down and eat and chat. My uncle has prepared some special dishes tonight. Try them and see if they suit your taste. Obito nodded as he heard this, he was already hungry. The three of them sat down at the dining table. Obito quietly looked at Tsukumo next to him. It's hard to imagine that the gentle housekeeper in front of him has become famous outside. Tsukumo smiled slightly and looked at the somewhat reserved Obito. Don't just watch, how about you try uncle's craftsmanship? Obito was not polite, picked up a piece of sweet and sour pork ribs and put it into his mouth, his eyes lit up. The rich deliciousness bloomed in his mouth, stimulating every one of his taste buds. Tasty. The smile in Tsukumo's eyes grew stronger. Then eat more. There's still some left in the pot. You're welcome at uncle's house. Obito chuckled. Yoshi. After a sumptuous dinner. Kakashi consciously put away the dishes and went to the kitchen to wash the pots and dishes. Obito rubbed his belly and nodded appreciatively. It is foreseeable that Brother Kaz will also be a good family man in the future. I just don't know which woman will be cheaper in the future. Or a man. Tisk tisk tisk. Just when Obito's imagination was running wild, Tsukumo suddenly asked, Obito, what kind of person do you think your uncle is? Before Obito could speak, a new multiple-choice question appeared in front of him. Option 1. Senior White Fang is a true hero. My uncle and I hit it off right away. How about we become brothers with different surnames? Completion reward. Nephew Kakashi +1. Option 2. I can't say, but if my father is still here, I think he must be as gentle and handsome as you. Completion reward. Start subsequent tasks. Looking at these two weird options, Obito only felt that they were full of flaws. If I had chosen option 1, I was afraid that I would have been stabbed to death by my nephew on the spot, with the knife going straight to the vital point. As for option 2, This licking is too obvious. So I choose option 2. It's really not because I'm interested in the follow-up mission rewards, it's just because I think option 1 is too outrageous. Well, and it's life-threatening, Obito said with adoring eyes and a sincere tone. I can't say for sure, but if my father is still here, I think he must be as gentle and handsome as you. Tsukumo was stunned and looked a little moved. He didn't expect Obito's evaluation of him to be so high. He didn't ask any more questions. After all, describing him as a father is the greatest recognition of him. Kakashi in the kitchen was also stunned. Obito once again refreshed his understanding of shamelessness. Tsukumo took a deep breath and asked seemingly casually, but in fact he asked seriously. Then what kind of person do you think my son Kakashi is? Kakashi in the kitchen perked up his ears. He seemed a little curious about Obito's answer. This time, no options appeared in front of Obito's eyes. Obito thought for a while and decided to answer the question according to his heart. Kakashi, this guy should be someone who can be a lifelong friend. Bear the darkness on your back and look towards the light. Bear the pain and convey the tenderness. Kakashi's unique charisma makes it hard not to fall in love with him. Aside from being a little horny, this guy is perfect. As long as he doesn't poke holes in my heart or pierce my wife's breasts in the future. My Tuzi brother recognizes him as a friend. Tsukumo has a discerning eye, and he can see that Obito is telling the truth. He nodded with some relief. Obito, you are a good boy. It is an honor for Kakashi to have a friend like you. Kakashi in the kitchen snorted disdainfully. But the corners of his mouth were slightly raised unconsciously, and he couldn't suppress them no matter what. The speed of washing dishes with my hands became faster unconsciously. Tsukumo stood up and said with a smile. Today is the first time we have met. As an elder, uncle plans to give you a gift. Please wait here for a while. Say it. Tsukumo walked into the house and started rummaging around. Obito rubbed his hands in anticipation, looking forward to the gift Tsukumo mentioned. After a while, Tsukumo walked out with a tachi and handed it to Obito. This sword is called Yingsho, named after its slender figure under the sun. It will be yours from now on. Crack, there was the sound of breaking porcelain bowls in the kitchen. Immediately afterwards, a small figure rushed out of the kitchen, with a look of shock on his face. Father, you want to give the shadow show to this guy? Obito looked at the sword in his hand. Seeing Kakashi's reaction, it's hard to guess how precious this knife is. He held Tachi tightly in his arms and looked at Tsukumo with questioning eyes. Senior White Fang, is this gift too expensive? Tsukumo shook his head and said calmly. The true value of a knife depends on the person who uses it. This knife suits you very well, just keep it. I just hope you won't let it down in the future. Kakashi is a little hard to understand. Father. Tsukumo stopped his words with his eyes. Obito caressed the shadow in his hand with a look of joy on his face. Yingsho's blade is neither long nor short, and the blade is red with delicate patterns engraved on it. The more Obito looked at it, the more he couldn't put it down. Moreover, when the handle of the knife is taken out of the sheath and put into the sheath, it will also make a crisp metallic sound. The sound of a sword being unsheathed, the roar of a sports car, and the sound of a girl. No boy can resist these temptations. Obito carefully put away the shadow show and bowed deeply towards Tsukumo. Thank you, Senior White Fang. I like this gift you gave me very much. Tsukumo nodded slightly and said calmly. Nice. You love it. He rubbed Kakashi's head and comforted his somewhat upset son. Then he asked Obito, Obito, have you ever learned how to use a sword? Obito shook his head and told the truth. No, Senior White Fang. To be honest, I have almost never been exposed to sword skills before. Is this so? Tsukumo said after thinking for a moment. Kakashi, go clean up the kitchen. Obito, come with me. Kakashi reluctantly went to the kitchen. Obito followed Tsukumo to the Hatake family's training ground. After Tsukumo casually picked up a knife from the weapon rack beside him, his whole demeanor changed. The gentle and peaceful temperament he had just now disappeared. Now he is like a sharp blade. It's so sharp that people dare not look directly at it. Obito was directly forced back 2 or 3 steps by this intimidating momentum. Tsukumo's eyes became deep, and there seemed to be nothing else in his eyes except the knife. Swordsmanship requires being down to earth. If you want to achieve something, you can only study hard and practice hard. You have never learned the art of swordsmanship systematically. I will only teach you one move today, the art of drawing swords. If you can understand a thing or two and practice diligently every day, I believe you will gain something. Tsukumo's right hand, at some point, was already on the handle of the knife. The long sword was unsheathed, and a cold light flashed across it, almost threatening to cut into pieces of the void. At this moment, Obito only had this amazing knife in his eyes. He's so handsome. A long time. Wait for Obito to come to his senses. Only then did he realize that Tsukumo had put away the knife and was looking at him with a smile for a long time. The core idea of Ba-Dao Jutsu is to kill with one strike. Utilize the instantaneous high-speed explosive power to draw the sword unexpectedly and strike, striving to kill with one move. If you are really interested in sword skills, practice it every day. After Tsukumo finished speaking, he added another sentence. Of course, it would be better if I could systematically learn some basic sword skills. Obito chuckled. Uncle, that move you just made was really cool. Can you do it again? After piaoping Tsukumo a few more times, Obito has almost mastered the essence of the art of drawing swords. He was too embarrassed to let Tsukumo continue to demonstrate for him. He bowed deeply to Tsukumo again and spoke with some confusion. Thank you Tsukumo-senpai for your precious sword and your generous teachings. I just don't know why you. Tsukumo put down the knife in his hand, his eyes filled with a trace of unbreakable melancholy. Obito, you are a smart boy. Uncle has encountered something recently. Just in case. Uncle means just in case. If anything happens to me in the future, I hope you can take good care of Kakashi for me. Kakashi has been stubborn since he was a child. I'm afraid of him. Having said this, Tsukumo let out a long sigh. Obito's heart trembled. Could it be that Tsukumo has realized something? A feeling of powerlessness surged in his heart. He really liked the gentle senior in front of him and wanted to do something for him. But now others have little power and limited power. Apart from sighing silently in my heart, it seems that I can't do anything. With his mind spinning, Obito looked directly into Tsukumo's eyes and said very seriously. Senior White Fang, you must be well. Please cheer up. Tsukumo chuckled and said nothing more. After practicing with Obito for a while, he led Obito out of the practice room. In the living room, Kakashi had just finished cleaning up the kitchen and was sitting on the sofa planning to take a rest. As a result, Tsukumo walked in and said, Son, it's time for little Obito to leave. Go see him off. Kakashi sighed inwardly. He stood up with a calm expression and nodded in response. Okay father. When Obito went out, he said goodbye to Tsukumo with a heavy heart. Goodbye, Senior White Fang, thank you for your hospitality today. The moonlight was pale and the cool breeze was blowing. The streets are bustling with traffic during the day, but deserted at night. The footsteps of the two little guys were the only sounds in the night. Kakashi looked at Obito aside, couldn't hold back after all, and asked. My father, what did he tell you? Obito thought for a moment, shrugged and said. Senior White Fang said you are too cold-tempered and need to make more friends. He asked me to take care of you more in the future. Kakashi snorted coldly. These words really seemed to come from his father, and, with Obito's IQ, he shouldn't be able to lie to anyone. So, what on earth do your father think? He doesn't need this idiot Obito to take care of him. Kakashi complained crazily in his heart, but remained silent on the outside. As a result, the atmosphere between the two fell silent again. After walking, Obito arrived home. He waved goodbye to Kakashi naturally. Goodbye, Kakashi. Kakashi nodded slightly in response. Then he left without looking back. Obito curled his lips when he saw this and complained in a low voice. TCH, what a cold guy. He shook his head and shouted into the house. Grandma, I'm back, early the next morning. Before the chicken next door could crow, Obito climbed out of bed. As long as he's not in school, Obito never sleeps in. Well, what should I do today? Just when Obito was struggling, the system listed 3 options for him. Option 1. There is no woman in my heart, so I draw my sword to the god of nature. Practice the sword drawing technique 10,000 times. Completion reward. Grandmaster. Option 2. How to practice swordsmanship is like playing with Kakashi's eyes, not doing his job. Go play. Wouldn't it be fun to play with Lin? Completion reward. Little bird plus 0.1 centimeters. Option 3. I am not interested in women or sword skills. I just want to lie down at home. Completion reward. 0.01 card chakra. Hiss. First, eliminate option 3. I, Obito, rise from the cockcrow and strive for self-improvement. Am I the kind of person who doesn't strive for advancement? Option 2 looks a bit tempting, but 0.1 centimeters. Is it the 0.1 centimeters that's missing from me? What's missing from me is... Ahem, in short, if I want to quickly improve my strength, option 1 is more suitable for me. Obito quickly made up his mind. Just choose option 1 and start practicing your sword after eating. Grandma hasn't gotten up yet. Obito ate some bread and drank a bag of milk. I picked up the movie show with great interest. Then, according to the techniques taught by Tsukumo, he began to practice the sword drawing technique. Hosage, death is like the wind, always with me. The power of this sword becomes stronger the more it cuts. It seems I am practicing swordsmanship. An hour later, Obito panted and put away the shadow show, and collapsed on the ground. His arm now felt like it was filled with lead and he couldn't lift it at all. Due to some secondary reasons, my voice is also a little hoarse. Hey, it took 2 hours to complete less than 100 times. How long do I have to practice these 10,000 times? He sighed and sighed. I feel like I'm under pressure that I shouldn't be under at this age. But if you think about it from another angle, it's actually not bad. After all, I am still young. These 2 arms are not needed for the time being to do something special. A week's vacation flies by. Obito didn't go anywhere, just practicing hard at home. 7 days, do you know how I spent these 7 days? The skin on my hands is almost gone, my shoulders are shaking with frozen shoulder, and my elbows can hardly turn in circles. But even though he was so diligent, he couldn't even achieve 1/5 of the progress. Hey, that's it for today. Obito sighed and put down the shadow show in his hand tremblingly. Then he dragged his body and threw himself on the bed. I have to go to school tomorrow, so I have to go to bed early. He thought to himself. At this moment, a multiple choice question appeared in front of him. Option 1. Stay up late to cultivate immortality, gain boundless magic power, or offer sacrifices to heaven. Go ahead, boy. Completion reward. The progress of the current task drawing the sword technique is doubled. Option 2. Pretend you didn't see option 1. Completion reward. Vision -1. Is this the legendary one that seems to have a choice, but actually has no choice? Obito sat up in shock as he was dying and yelled, I can do it. I can. Grandma's faint voice came from outside the house. Obito. Obito said sarcastically. Sorry Grandma, sorry, please take a rest. He raised his arm and weakly picked up the shadow show. A new round of progress started again. The next morning, Obito walked toward the school listlessly with 2 big black eyes, looking very much like a certain star and athlete. I'm so sleepy. But after getting the reward of doubling the progress, it's almost 4,000 times now. Is this the exhilarating happiness? He entered the classroom eagerly. When I got to my seat, I fell asleep without saying a word. Ho. I do not know how long it has been. The soft voice of the little loli sounded in my ears. Obito-kun, Kazuki-sensei is here, get up quickly. Obito rubbed his eyes and sat up sleepily, his mind going blank. Who am I? Where am I? Why am I so handsome? Urahara Kazuki strode into the classroom with excitement. He held a report card high and stood on the podium beaming with joy. Classmates, let me tell you some good news. He deliberately put it off before continuing. The average score of our class this time is the first in the grade. The little people cheered in unison. Oh. Naganomi said loudly, Teacher Kazuki, when will you invite us to have a big dinner? Kazuki scratched his head in confusion. Feast? What kind of feast? The classroom suddenly burst into boos. Even with Kazuki's shamelessness, he couldn't help but break his guard, which was embarrassing. He had indeed planned to treat the children to dinner. Unfortunately, his wife refuses to help him. I do have some private money, but it's not enough at all. In order to avoid embarrassment, Kazuki quickly changed the subject. Next, the teacher will announce the results of our class. However, the little people below do not accept this trick. Someone shouted. Kazuki-sensei seems to be changing the subject. Someone immediately echoed around him. That's right, we agreed that as long as we get first place, we'll be treated to a big dinner. That's right, Konoha people don't lie to Konoha people, don't trick us. Teacher Kazuki is so bad, he even deceives children. The noisy voices of the little people were almost lifting the roof. At this moment, a faint voice sounded. Hey, everyone, please forgive Kazuki-sensei, it's not easy for him either. According to my guess, 80% of teacher Kazuki's monthly salary is not in his hands. Why? The little people were stunned at first. Then the expressions on each little face became wonderful. Search to death. Search him to death, Naganoha said with a wicked smile. Teacher Kazuki, if you had told me earlier that you were in trouble, we would all understand. Someone answered. Yes, I understand everything. Children in this world mature very early. For them, eating a big meal is not as attractive as 8 trigrams. A girl said with a smile. I didn't expect Mr. Kazuki to love his wife so much. I love her so much. I want to marry a man like Mr. Kazuki in the future. Well, it's about personality, not looks. Urahara Kazuki covered his face with his hands. He felt that his dignity as a teacher was gone from now on. If it weren't for the shoes on his feet, he would have been so embarrassed that he dug out a 3-bedroom apartment with his toes. Kazuki looked at the villain who had just set the rhythm with a resentful look on his face. Thank you, teacher, Shikaha. The little man named Lu Yu waved his hand and whispered softly. So, women are the most troublesome. Lu Yu wore a pineapple head and lay lazily on the table. With these distinctive features, coupled with his superior IQ, you can tell at a glance that he belongs to the Nara family. Wait until the little people are done making trouble. Kazuki knocked on the table, once again attracting the little people's attention. Okay, the teacher will announce the results this time. The students whose names are read will come up and take away their test papers. When the results were mentioned, the atmosphere became a little solemn. I'm so nervous. Me too, if I don't do well in the exam, I will be beaten again when I go back equals. Fortunately I am an orphan. Question mark. I will tell your uncle and aunt for you next time that you are an orphan. No, I'll buy you a drink after school. Please be a human being. Kazuki read. First place, Hitaki Kakashi. Kakashi stood up indifferently, took away the paper, and then sat down again. Kazuki was used to this, the kid was always incapable of affection. Second place, Nara Shikabane. Lu Yu stood up slowly, like an old man. Academic Master A wailed. The top 2 this time are the 2 of them again, I guess they are third again. Academic Master B shook his head and sighed. Being in the same class with the 2 of them, I really don't know whether we are lucky or unlucky. But then again, third place should be me. The crouching dragon and the phoenix looked at each other, sparks faintly flashing in their eyes. Naganoha laughed. You 2 are wrong. Didn't someone say during the exam that he could be in the top 3? He said in a sarcastic tone. Third place must be the smartest guy in our class, Uchiha Obito. The other side, Shikaha slowly sat back in his seat. Kazuki continued. Third place, Uchiha Obito. Academic A. Academic B. Naganoha. It's not just them. Everyone doubted their ears. I cuff you, this guy Obito actually made it into the top 3. Obito smiled and did not get up to collect the paper. Instead, he winked at Naganomi in a mean manner. Kazuki was speechless when he saw this. Obito, the teacher called you, didn't you hear? Obito stood up with a smile and said. I heard the teacher, I'm mainly afraid that the classmates didn't hear. Kazuki, come here quickly. In the eyes of everyone with envy and hatred. Obito happily took away his paper. In my mind, I also received the prompt to complete the selection. Successful selection. Obtain reward. Fire style comprehension +5. Fourth place, Academic Master A. Fifth place, Top Student B. After Kazuki announced everyone's results one by one, he began to leave homework for the holidays. But Obito didn't listen at all. Operation. What homework? My native brother stopped doing homework when he was ranked last. Now that I'm in the top 3, I definitely don't have to do homework anymore. After Kazuki kept mumbling for half an hour, he finally stopped. Okay, I wish you all a happy holiday and see you next semester. Wait until Kazuki leaves the classroom. The little people were completely having fun. It's a holiday. In classrooms, the little people who have a good relationship have gathered together in 2s and 3s. Discuss what to do after the holiday. As for homework, will anyone write about this thing until school starts soon? Just when Lin was about to congratulate Obito, a girl squeezed her away without leaving any trace. He came closer to Obito and said in a low voice, Obito Gigi, I didn't expect you to do so well in the exam. I don't understand a few questions that I don't understand. Can you explain them to me later? Obito glared at the girl. You didn't ask when Mr. Kazuki was here just now. When the teacher left, you came over and asked me. Do you want to make things difficult for me, Obito? No time, ask Kakashi. The girl gritted her teeth and left. I hate these straight men so much. Pooch. Lin couldn't help but laugh out loud. At this time, an unexpected guy walked over with his head in his hands. Well, you did well in the exam, congratulations. I really underestimated you before. Shikaha. Obito was a little surprised. I had almost no interaction with Liu Yu before. I didn't expect that he would take the initiative to come over and talk to me. Thank you, Shikaba-kun, Obito said. Liu Yu nodded slightly and sighed inwardly. He felt very lonely and pitiful. Normally, every boy in the Nara family will have 2 friends. One is from the Yamanaka family and the other is from the Akamaiki family. Ino Shika Cho trio. But here's the problem. That year, his parents chose to have a second child. But the other 2 families didn't want it. Over the years, he had tried to make friends casually. But geniuses are mostly lonely, and they disdain to make friends with ordinary people. He tried to befriend Kakashi. And failed. He looked down upon the rest of the class. Until now, he found another interesting target, Obito. Shikaha's face was very close to Obito, and he looked at Obito carefully. Speaking of which, I feel like you've changed into a different person recently. You're not the same Obito you were before, are you? Obito's heart tightened. I handcuff you, are pineapple heads so scary? Obito looked a little unnatural. Shikaha scratched his head and said, I'm just joking, don't take it seriously. The atmosphere between the 2 of them was a little awkward. In a brief silence, a playful voice came, Obito-kun, Shikaha-kun, and Xiaolin, what are your plans for the holidays? The 3 of them turned their heads together. A thought suddenly flashed through my mind. Who is this person? Do we know each other? The one who spoke just now was a girl in black. She has long black hair, looks ordinary, and looks a little shy. She also wore a pair of small sunglasses on her pretty face. Obito thought for a long time before he remembered who this girl was. Ayako. Aburame Ayako, a classmate of Obito and others. Somewhat outrageous, Obito muttered to himself. The relationship between him and Ayako is obviously not bad. But why did my mind go blank when I saw Ayako? Lin smiled and took Ayako's little hand. Ayako, when did you come here? I didn't notice it. Ayako's voice was a little aggrieved. I have been standing next to you for a long time, and you have been ignoring me. This. Obito was shocked. The Aburame clan's lack of sense of existence, is it hereditary? After the 4 chatted for a while, Liu Yu left first. Lin took Ayako to talk to the girls. Obito walked up to Kakashi and hugged his shoulders with a smile. Is something wrong? Kakashi frowned slightly and pushed Obito's paw away indifferently. He hates it when others touch him. Obito chuckled. I kind of miss my uncle's cooking. How many days have you seen it? Can you let me have a meal again? Kakashi stared at Obito expressionlessly, not knowing what he was thinking. After a while, he nodded. Okay, just tomorrow at noon, my father should be free. At this time, a green watermelon head stuck in. Kakashi, let's have a youthful showdown with me. Don't want. Come on, don't want. Obito felt that the gay value nearby was too high. He hurriedly ran away, for fear of being affected by the 2 of them. Lin-chan, let's go, I'll take you home. Okay. On the way home, Obito held Lin's little hand the whole time, his heart almost reaching his throat. Until Lin was delivered to the door of her house. Obito then reluctantly let go of his hand. Goodbye, Lin-chan, I'll come and play with you when I have time. Lin smiled and waved her hand vigorously towards Obito. Then we have an agreement. Goodbye, Obito-kun. Obito raised his right hand and returned home feeling lost. He decided not to wash his hands today. Noon the next day. Obito brought Yingshou to Kakashi's home. He came to White Fang for two main purposes. 1. White Fang is the ceiling of combat power at this stage, so he should be able to answer multiple choice questions. 2. Find a way to enlighten White Fang so that he will not have thoughts of death. Although I don't know if I can do this. But this is the only thing he can do for White Fang at the moment. Think of this. Obito sighed and knocked on Hitaki's door. Dong dong dong. After a while, the door was opened. It was Tsukumo who opened the door. The melancholy between his brows and eyes became even thicker, almost overflowing. But when he saw Obito, he smiled sincerely. Ah, there you are, little Obito. Obito chuckled. The food cooked by uncle is really delicious. I'm greedy again. I'm really sorry to trouble you. Tsukumo rubbed Obito's head gently. It's no trouble at all, come in and sit down. There's really nothing to say about Tsukumo's cooking skills. What Obito eats makes him happy. Especially if my uncle is rich, he can still eat expensive meat. After a hearty meal, Tsukumo said with a smile. I see you brought Yingshou here. Do you want to learn sword skills from me? Before Obito could answer, a multiple choice question appeared in front of him. Option 1. Ask White Fang for advice on how to draw a sword. Completion reward. The progress of the current task drawing the sword technique is doubled. Option 2. Ask White Fang for advice on basic knife skills. Completion reward. Start the basic sword skills task. Option 3. Uncle, this knife is for cutting vegetables. In fact, I want to learn to cook with you. Ask White Fang for cooking tips. Completion reward. Hitaki family ancestral recipe. Obito swept his eyes wide and eliminated option 3 first. Then make a decision quickly. Continue to learn the art of sword drawing with White Fang. Sword skills, I guess, are somewhat useful for early stage transitions. In the later stages of the fight between gods and gods, one by one cheating on the Gundams is really of little use. So just learn a few tricks and there is no need to put all your energy into them. Even if you really want to learn, come back next time. Uncle Tsukumo, I really want to ask you to teach me the sword drawing technique you taught me last time. Obito said sincerely. Tsukumo nodded. Then come with me. Kakashi, you too. Tsukumo took the two little guys to the practice ground together. Start teaching two people how to use the sword. Obito immersed himself in training. The afternoon passed quickly. Then, in the evening, he naturally had another meal here. While eating, Obito pua Tsukumo intentionally or unintentionally. Kakashi is so lucky to have such an excellent father like you. No wonder he is so outstanding. He must be inseparable from your careful teaching. You should work harder on Kakashi in the future. Maybe he can become a Hokage in the future. A crazy output. Tsukumo was okay. Kakashi's little face under the mask was already red. Obito, this guy is real. Why hadn't I noticed before that his words were so pertinent and pleasant? After eating, Obito said with a smile. I can't get enough of the food my uncle cooks. Can I come back next time? Tsukumo laughed loudly, held down his somewhat unhappy son, and said. Of course, you are always welcome. Obito stood up and said. It's getting late, so I won't disturb you. Goodbye uncle, goodbye Kakashi. Tsukumo originally wanted Kakashi to give Obito a gift, but Obito refused. He looked at Obito's leaving figure with mixed feelings in his heart. Obito is a good boy. Obito returned home happily. Today's harvest can be described as huge. The progress of his previous sword drawing technique has reached almost 4,000 times. Now after completing the task, it has doubled and approached 8,000 times. In this way, it is not far from completion. Lying in bed, the tired Obito quickly fell asleep. Tomorrow, he has new plans. Obito slept until noon, and Haki got up all day long. Well, it feels like I always have half as much time as others every day. He muttered and got dressed. After eating something casually, we went out. Today, he is going to learn ninjutsu. Ninjutsu is an inescapable existence in the Hokage world. In the usual sense, the more ninjutsu you master and the higher the level of ninjutsu, the stronger a ninja is. But ninjutsu is also monopolized by major families and the top brass of Konoha. In the ninja school, all civilians can learn as the most basic three-body technique. Namely clone technique, body replacement technique, and transformation technique. Want to learn other ninjutsu? Sorry, you're thinking shit. Unless you join Konoha's official organization or join a big clan. Otherwise, he would not be able to access the terrifyingly lethal ninjutsu. And can just be a salted fish for the rest of his life. As one of the big families in Konoha, the Uchiha clan has a rich heritage and masters many ninjutsu. With the family as the hub, it is passed down from generation to generation. It's a pity that his parents died on the battlefield. Otherwise, thinking of this, Obito's expression darkened. However, he quickly adjusted his mood and his eyes became firm. Anyway, now if you want to learn ninjutsu, you have to find someone else to teach you. Obito walked through the alleys with ease. Then he walked into a small courtyard. A short child was squatting on the ground studying ants. When he saw Obito, his eyes lit up. He stood up excitedly and walked towards Obito. Brother Obito. There was a smile on Obito's lips. If there is a person in Hokage who devotes his life to protecting Konoha, then this person must be Chuon's. Shisui. Obito rubbed Shisui's little head and asked with a smile. Shisui, is uncle at home today? Before Shisui could respond, a middle-aged man heard the sound and walked out of the house. Hey, Obito, why did you think of coming to see your cousin today? The man has a signature black spiked head, soft facial features, and wisdom in his eyes. Except for Itachi, who uses rejoice, the others are all thorns. Obito scratched his head and chuckled. I haven't seen my uncle for a long time. I just wanted to come over and see you, and learn some ninjutsu or something by the way. The person in front of him is his cousin Uchiha Chuon. Uchihakawa laughed dumbly. You kid, okay, my uncle is fine today, so I will teach you a trick. Obito clenched his fists excitedly. Yoshi. Kawa took Shisui back to the house, and then took Obito to the backyard. This is an open space. There are also small pits on the surface, which are obviously places specially used for practice. Chuon stopped and said to his eldest nephew beside him. What Uchiha is best at is fire style. Today, my uncle will teach you a basic fire style move. Obito asked tentatively. Uncle, are you talking about the great fireball technique? Chuon smiled and nodded. Ah, this. Obito was speechless. He really has no interest in fire style immune to death technique. 720 episodes. In 720 episodes, no one has been killed by this technique. Seeing his eldest nephew looking strange, Chuon was a little confused. What's the matter, Obito? Obito quickly corrected his attitude, shook his head and said. It's okay, uncle, please continue talking. When building a tall building from the ground up, lay a solid foundation first, and then go for it. Chuon nodded. I carefully talked to Obito about the key points of releasing the great fireball technique. Quote. The seal that needs to be made is Siwei Shen Hai Wu Yin. Finally, mobilize the fire attribute chakra, gather it in the throat, and suddenly release it towards the target you want to attack. Okay, these are the things you need to pay attention to. Come and give it a try. Obito took a deep breath. He completed the mudra with his hands somewhat clumsily, trying hard to condense the chakra into his throat and spray it out. Ha, tui, a weak flame burst out, only to be extinguished by the blowing wind. Obito. He tried a few more times, but each time he could only emit small sparks. He felt like he was a lighter in shape. Seeing that his nephew was a little frustrated, Chuon comforted him with a smile. Don't be discouraged, Bito, I think my cousin used it too. He wanted to say that it took him half a day to fully master the great fireball technique. But he was afraid that it would dampen his nephew's enthusiasm for learning, so he swallowed the next words. After all, in his opinion, his nephew's qualifications were not outstanding. It will take you 2 or 3 days to master the Great Fireball technique. He patted Obito's shoulder and said, haha, after all, practice is about perseverance. You practice here first, and uncle will go to the back room to play with Shisui for a while. If you don't understand anything, call me anytime. Obito nodded gratefully. Okay, thank you uncle. Wait for Uchihikawa to return to the house. Obito calmed down and formed the seal over and over again. Carefully experience the changes in chakra in your body. I have a fire style comprehension plus 5 bonus, so there is no reason why I can't learn the immune to death technique. After an hour, Uchihikawa stretched and walked out of the house. How's it going, Obito? Obito said with a smile. I feel like I've learned it, uncle. Chuan smiled and nodded. Well, it's normal to not learn, but as long as... He suddenly realized something was wrong and the smile on his face froze. Wait, eldest nephew, what did you just say? Obito said nothing and chose to prove himself with actions. Si Wei Shen Hai Wu Yin, Fire Style Great Fireball Technique. Obito opened his small mouth slightly and spit out a huge fireball. The scorching flames distorted the air, and the terrifying flames suddenly came into contact with the ground, creating a deep depression in the flat surface. This, Chuan's Adam's apple twitched. He really didn't expect his nephew who was always the last person. It's amazing how quickly I mastered the Great Fireball technique. Faster than before. Obito had just learned ninjutsu at this time and was in a good mood. He asked, looking at Uchihikawa with some curiosity. Uncle, how long did it take you to learn the Great Fireball technique? In order not to embarrass himself in front of his nephew, Chuan decided to tell a white lie. Well, my uncle used it for about 40 or 50 minutes, a little faster than you. But don't be frustrated, your speed is not much worse than my cousin's. Obito couldn't help but feel a little emotional after hearing what Chuan said. My understanding of fire style has improved, but I still can't catch up with my uncle's understanding. What an amazing talent and beauty this uncle has. My uncle Kawa-san has Hokage qualifications. But, his uncle is so awesome, why is he not famous among the Hokage? Before Obito could think about it, Uchiha Chuan changed the topic with a guilty conscience. Ahem, Obito, now that you have learned the Great Fireball technique, do you have any other plans? Uncle, don't panic, let me think for a moment. Obito looked at the 3 options in front of him and fell into deep thought. Option 1. Continue to consolidate fire-style Great Fireball technique and contribute to building a harmonious ninja world. Completion reward. The power of this ninjutsu plus 3. Option 2. Keep talking and tell Uchihikawa that you want to learn new ninjutsu. Completion reward. Master a random ninjutsu mainly depends on what your uncle teaches. Option 3. Just leave and go home for dinner. Completion reward. Those who know food will have a halo of excellence. Those who know food have a heroic aura. When eating, temperament plus 1. He who knows food when riding a horse is a hero. Pass. Option 1 also passes directly. The Great Fireball technique can't hit anyone, no matter how powerful it is, it's useless. Decisive deduction of 2 without explanation. Obito rubbed his little hands expectantly. Uncle, I want to learn a new ninjutsu. Uchihikawa thought for a moment, shook his head and said. Obito, you have to understand that you can't bite off more than you can chew. Why don't you master the Great Fireball technique first, and then come to your uncle to learn new ninjutsu? Obito thought to himself, how can this be done? Come back next time. The system may not give me this task. Uncle, I just want to see more about ninjutsu. Please understand my thirst for knowledge. Even if you just briefly talk to me first and let me have an understanding first, that's okay. Better give me the whole forbidden technique or something. Uchihikawa looked at his eldest nephew's expectant eyes. After pondering for a while, he nodded in agreement. Okay then, my uncle will teach you another ninjutsu, the Phoenix Fire technique. When Uchihikawa said these words, a buzzer sounded in Obito's head. Successful selection. Obtain reward. Fire Style Feng Xian Fire Technique. The key point of this technique is... Obito interrupted Kawa with a smile. Okay, uncle, how about we stop here today, thank you, uncle. ... Uchihikawa raised 3 question marks with his face. Didn't you say you wanted to learn it? I just said a name and you didn't listen. He was put in a difficult position by Obito, which made him feel uncomfortable. Okay, Chuan said helplessly. Hee, goodbye, uncle. Obito ran home quickly. I slipped away and went home to play with my big sword. The speed is 70 miles, and the mood is free. Obito hummed a tune proudly. You mastered two ninjutsu in half a day, you are worthy of me. Sure enough, hard work is the only way to success. You have to work even harder in the future, work hard to pass the multiple choice questions. After returning home, Obito searched around his house. Then he discovered with a confused look that his knife was missing. He shouted, Grandma, where is my knife? Grandma's voice came from outside the house. Grandma cleaned the house for you today and put your knife in the box under the bed. Obito let out an, ouch. He dug out his own movie from under the bed and started working again. Some gay guy unzipped my pants. The Lion's Dirge. 36 Troubled Winds. In the days that followed, Obito devoted himself wholeheartedly to training. The passage of time was barely noticeable. He never finds practice boring. Can use cool ninjutsu and perform gorgeous sword skills. Flying over the high courtyard wall. This was something that many boys dreamed of in the world of his previous life. Certainly, it would be even better if the system could reward itself with a telescope technique. You can reward yourself, doghead. With the help of the system, his improvement was huge. Now he has mastered 4 ninjutsu including the Great Fireball Technique, Hosen Fire Technique, Dragon Fire Technique, and Earth Flow Wall. Basic 3 Body Technique is not included. After he learned how to draw a sword, he learned basic sword skills from White Fang. In terms of physical skills, he estimated that he was somewhere between Genin and Chunin. It's a weak point in terms of illusion. But I am Uchiha. After opening my eyes, this problem no longer exists. Well, this holiday has been very fulfilling. Obito concluded to himself. Not to mention that my strength has improved so much, my relationship with Lin is also closer than before, and Senior White Fang. Although the rumors in the village are getting worse. But there is only one string in Tsukumo's heart. Obito believes he will make a different choice. I hope that guy Kakashi can live a happy life this time, hey. Obito shook his head and lay on the bed ready to rest. Tomorrow, a new semester begins. First day of school. As expected, Obito was called to the office by Urahara Kazuki. Kazuki sat at the desk, looked at the dejected Obito across from him, and snorted. Obito, why don't you do your homework again? Obito thought for a while and said, Teacher Kazuki, I think what you teach is useless. In reality. Before he could finish, Kazuki sighed and said, Obito, don't talk about yourself like that. Actually, you still have a lot of shining points in the teacher's mind. Obito, teacher, I want to say that these homework assignments you left have no effect on improving your strength. Kazuki knocked on the table, lost in thought. He also knew how good the ninja school's courses were. Meet a lively kid like Obito. If you are too rigid with them, it will be detrimental to their growth. Teaching students in accordance with their aptitude is an essential quality for a teacher. After thinking for a while, he decided to make a change. Okay Obito, if you can keep your grades stable, the teacher will allow you not to do your homework. But this matter is only known to you and me. Don't tell anyone else. Obito was overjoyed and agreed immediately. No problem, Kazuki-sensei. Urahara Kazuki waved at him. Okay, go back to the classroom quickly, don't delay the next class. Obito returned to class happily. A young man with a Madara face stood in front of him and said viciously. Obito, duel me after school today. Obito pushed the boy away with a speechless expression. Those who know you are Naganomi. People who don't know you might think you or might wave. Fight you, Obito said. You are no match for me, I advise you to give up as soon as possible. Naganoha sneered. Give up. There is no word, give up, in my dictionary. Obito scratched his head and said. Then why don't you go find the bookstore owner quickly? What you bought is a pirated dictionary, right? Naganoha. Just when he was speechless, Obito had already crossed him and sat down next to the little loli. He looked at the little loli and said with a smile. Lin-chan, I haven't seen you for a few days, but I feel like you've become beautiful again. Lin's face turned red. Obito-kun, you are teasing me again. Obito said seriously. No way, everyone knows that I, Bito, never lie. Naganomi said angrily on the side. Bullshit, last time you lied to me and waited for you in the cold wind all night. Obito's mouth is a liar. Obito looked at Naganomi with an evil look. You really want to be beaten, don't you? Don't leave after school at night. The playground will teach you how to behave. Naganoha sneered. Whoever leaves then will be the puppy. I must avenge my shame today. Until the teacher walked into the classroom. Naganoha sat back in his seat. The teacher lectures on the podium. However, Naganoha didn't listen to a word. All he could think about now was Obito. Finally got to the end of get out of class. Naganomi stood up impatiently and looked at Obito with a grin. We'll see you on the playground. Don't break your appointment, you coward. Obito pouted. TCH, I've never seen anyone rush to get beaten. On the playground, two figures stood facing each other. A gust of cold wind blew by, their sleeves fluttered, and their eyes were frosty. Obito handed his cup to the little loli beside him without looking at Kaido. Lin, go get me a cup of hot water. We'll drink it later on the way back. Wait for the little loli to leave. Obito lifted up his sleeves and hooked his hand towards Naganomi. Come on, make it quick. Naganoha snorted coldly, with a hint of ridicule at the corner of his mouth. Obito, you must think you have a chance to win. Obito nodded naturally, but I felt a little impatient in my heart. If you want to fight, fight. Why do you talk so much? What kind of water is this? Nagano waved his hands on his hips triumphantly. Ha, if you really think so, you are totally wrong. In order to defeat you, during this holiday, I worked 10 times as hard as a normal person. The me I am today is no longer the me I was before. The me I am now. Before Naganoha could finish speaking, a fist suddenly enlarged in front of his eyes. Boom! Obito punched Naganomi in the face. Naganoha's eyes were filled with stars. After losing his center of gravity, he fell to the ground with a bang. Obito beat Naganomi on the ground. That's it, let you talk more, let you talk more. Naganomi protected his head on the ground and cursed. You're doing a sneak attack. You can't afford it. You have no strength. You don't even dare to confront me head on. The force on Obito's feet increased by 3 points. Oh, really? Welcome to Confrontation Road. In just 2 or 3 minutes, Obito easily resolved the battle. Well, or rather a one-sided beating. On the other side, the little loli also ran back with a cup. Obito-kun, your cup. Obito took the cup, his eyes turned into crescent moons. Thank you Rin-chan. He glanced at Naganoha who fell to the ground beneath him. Picking up the cup in his hand, great pride arose in his heart. In the past, Guan Yu killed Hua Xiong with warm wine, but now I am Obito. Puff! Obito took a sip of water, but couldn't swallow it. He sprayed it directly on Naganoha's face. Ah! Naganomi screamed. Obito looked at Lin in confusion. Lin said with her big eyes blinking. You said you should take the hot water, so I took the freshly boiled water. Ah this. Obito clasped his hands together and bowed to Naganoha on the ground. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Let's go, Lin-chan. Obito held Lin's little hand and left the scene of the crime. The shrill voice of Naganoha behind him spread throughout the entire campus. Ah, Obito, you and I are at odds with each other. After sending Lin home, Obito walked on the road with a frown. He now has a big problem. The system has not given him multiple choice questions for almost 10 days. These days, he tried various strange postures, but the system didn't react at all. You know, the system is the source of all his confidence. Now that the system is unresponsive, Obito said he was panicking. System, are you here? Can you give me a mission? Brother System. System Dad. Grandpa System. System. The system was troubled by Obito and a light curtain popped up. Obito was shocked. My handcuffs actually work, but this option. Option 1. Soak in any mucus every day, learn Katsuyu to blow bubbles for half an hour, and persist for 10 years. Completion reward. Moist Bone Forest Immortal Technique. Option 2. Learn toad chirping and jumping for half an hour every day for 10 years. Completion reward. Mount Myoboku Senjutsu. Option 3. Learn to crawl with snakes for half an hour every day for 10 years. Completion reward. Ryachi Cave Senjutsu. U1S1. The reward for this multiple choice question is definitely the most generous Obito has ever seen. Immortal Magic. The top power system in Hokage. But what kind of cattle and horse options does this give? Isn't it enough to let our company die once? This is the rhythm that will kill our society for 10 years. Obito seriously suspects that the system is targeting him. System. Ding. Don't doubt it, this system is targeting you. Which one should I choose among these three? Or which one can I choose? This is the first time Obito doesn't look at the rewards and makes a choice based solely on the options. Option 1 is really unbearable for misophobic patients. Option 2 is about jumping and barking at the same time, which makes it easy for people to find out. Obito sighed, having to make a choice. Then let's go to option 3. His current state is probably one of pain and happiness. Only when you are infinitely close to social death can you understand the true meaning of power. Evening. When the last light in the sky passed away, pure black night enveloped the earth. A figure poked his head around and walked out of his house. He walked furtively toward the woods. It's so late, I don't believe there's anyone in the woods. The figure is none other than Obito. He specifically chose this time to come to the grove to complete the option requirements. After double-checking that no one was nearby, Obito lay on the ground, crawling forward slowly like a snake. After climbing for a while, Obito felt a little lucky. Handcuffs. Luckily I'm smart and put a towel on the little chick in advance, otherwise the consequences would be disastrous. The other side of the grove. A young man who was practicing meticulously slowly retracted his kicked left leg. He looked into the distance with some confusion. Why do you feel like you heard Obito-kun's voice? As if he had thought of something, the young man looked slightly excited. Could it be that Obito-kun is like me, still practicing hard at this late hour? You are indeed a person who has understood the true meaning of youth. The sweat we shed is the glory of our youth. The young man walked towards the source of the sound just now. Soon I saw the familiar figure. He scratched his head in confusion and muttered softly. It's really Obito-kun, but what is he doing? The boy stopped where he was and carefully observed Obito's every move. Cuffs, it still hurts. I feel like my little iron pestle is about to be ground into a needle. Obito complained while squirming hard, trying to complete the task quickly. Climbing and crawling. Suddenly he heard some strange noises. He raised his head and met the eyes of another person. Obito, there are two deaths in a person's life, namely physiological death and social death. Compared with the former, the latter is the most painful existence. Obito's little face was twisted. It's so late, you're not sleeping at home, and you're not bringing your girlfriend with you. What are you doing in the woods alone? Guy, however, at this moment, Guy also asked the same question. Obito-kun, what are you doing? He watched for a long time, but he didn't understand what Obito was doing just now. After Obito was silent for a moment, he slowly spoke. I'm opening Dragon's Back. The combination of Kailongji and bionic technology can exercise people's waist and abdominal core strength and activate stiff muscle groups. See GUI. Guy's eyes lit up little by little, eager for the exercise techniques Obito said. Obito-kun, can I join you? I stayed up all night to catch up on my homework, and when I got up I felt dizzy and updated. Hey, I wish I could be like Brother Tuzi and not do homework. In the woods, Obito was still making noises and crawling forward with difficulty. It's just different from before. Now, there is a green snake beside him. The two clumsy snakes twisted around together, looking like they had lost their minds, which was quite hilarious. Obito is already numb. He felt like he was playing with geckos. Guy exclaimed while climbing seriously. Obito-kun, I didn't expect that opening the dragon's spine can really stimulate the waist and abdominal muscles. How did you come up with such a genius exercise method? Obito said calmly. Don't speak on the way to the dragon's back, as it will affect the effectiveness of your practice. Guy said, oh, and stopped talking. Obito breathed a sigh of relief. For a while, the only sounds left in the woods were the whining wind and the rustling sound of the two crawling. But after a while, Guy asked again. Obito-kun, do you come here every night to open Dragon's Back? Can I practice with you in the future? Obito's eyes twitched and he spoke word by word. Can't. It's impossible between us. Just give up on this. Guy was a little disappointed, and his thick eyebrows suddenly drooped. It seems that Obito-kun does not consider him a friend. But in my heart, I have long regarded him as a confidant. Just after Obito rejected Guy righteously, a curtain of light lit up in front of his eyes. Option 1. The road to spiritual practice is long and requires companionship. Since someone wants to practice dual cultivation with you, just obey him. Completion reward. Physical skill improvement Chunin level. Option 2. Even if I, Obito, starve to death, even if I don't want rewards, I will never engage in performance art with the green-skinned Kappa. Completion reward. No reward. Option 3. Tell Guy that if he can win over Kakashi, promise him that the three of us can be happy together in the future. Practice. Completion reward. 3 people become a crowd. 3 people form a crowd halo. As long as you are accompanied by 2 or more people, no matter what you do, you will not feel embarrassed. This. Obito said that he really wanted to refuse. But the system gives too much. He forced a smile and said to the silent snake beside him. Guy-san, actually, I was joking with you just now. From now on, we will practice together. Let us encourage each other, supervise each other, and make progress. Guy's heart, which was originally cold, was now filled with heat again. Really, Obito-kun, that's great. At the same time, the system prompt tone also sounded. Successful selection. Obtain reward. Physical skills improvement Chunin level. Obito sighed. Oh, what a sin. He felt a steady stream of power coming from his body. The crawling speed was also 3 points faster than before. But what surprised him was, no matter how fast he is, Guy can keep up. This is unscientific, Obito muttered softly. He thought for a while, and suddenly it dawned on him. Maybe, this is the difference between an acorn and a dragon. A week later, in the classroom of the ninja school, the teacher taught passionately on the podium. Obito was absent-minded, looking frequently at an empty seat not far away. That guy Kakashi, why didn't you come to class today? After class, Obito saw that familiar figure while he was doing activities in the playground. The other party seemed to be waiting for him, and nodded slightly towards him. Obito walked towards Kakashi and asked with some confusion. What's wrong, Kakashi? After Kakashi was silent for a while, he slowly spoke. I applied for early graduation, and I will never come to school again, let me tell you. Obito nodded with a complicated expression. I see. The Kakashi in front of me is still a child. He was not the Kadian who was indifferent to favors and humiliations and could ignore everything in his impression. No matter how mature his mind is, he will still be affected by gossip and gossip. Obito thought for a moment, stretched out his hand and patted Kakashi's shoulder twice. This time, Kakashi didn't push his hand away. Obito looked directly into Kakashi's eyes and said seriously, I want to tell you that no matter what decision you make, I will support you unconditionally. Because you're Kakashi, because you're my friend. The corners of Kakashi's mouth turned up slightly under his mask, but he still looked very calm on the surface. Well, let's go. Even Kakashi himself didn't realize it. His pace when he left was much lighter than when he came. Obito pouted. You're so arrogant. If you say a few more words, you'll die. At this time, Guy hurried over. Obito-kun, Obito-kun. I just saw Kakashi coming to see you upstairs. What did you say? Did he say why he didn't come to class today? This love is overwhelming. Obito took 2 steps back calmly. Then he repeated what Kakashi just said. After hearing this, Guy murmured to himself sadly. How could this happen? How could this happen? He made up his mind and said firmly. No, I want to graduate early too. Obito shook his head, ruthlessly shattering Guy's illusions. Guy-san, let's just say that with your crappy 3-body technique, it will be a little difficult for you to graduate. It seems like. Guy's expression froze. The days passed. The rumors about White Fang in the village have not dissipated. Instead, it intensified over time and reached its peak. During this period, some people tried to defend White Fang, but they were quickly overwhelmed by the tide of malice. Why hasn't this kind of trash who can't complete his mission died yet? Having caused so much damage to the village, he still has the dignity to stay in the village. I'm ashamed of him. I propose to expel White Fang from the village. He is a disgrace to our Konoha. Quote. The heroes who were so high in the past have fallen from the altar, and everyone can't wait to step on them. It seems like that's all it takes. They have become like big shots, with the power and pleasure to judge others at will. In the Hokage's office, third generation looked at Hitaki Tsukumo in front of them, and hesitated to speak with some heartache. Tsukumo, the avalanche of insults and rumors has almost overwhelmed this young man. His figure was no longer upright, and his deep eyes had lost their sparkle. The once high-spirited White Fang has long disappeared. All that was left seemed to be a soulless body. A figure stepped out of the shadows. He was quite dissatisfied with third generation's hesitant behavior. Hiruzen, let me do the talking. Danzo walked up to Tsukumo slowly, looked at him condescendingly and said. Hitaki Tsukumo, now there is an opportunity for you to make up for your past mistakes and avenge your shame. This is a mission. As long as you can complete it, the bad voices in the village will disappear, and you will become a hero in everyone's eyes again. Are you willing to accept it? Tsukumo suddenly raised his head, as if he had made a decision in an instant. Third generation interrupted him and said in a deep voice. Tsukumo, don't rush to answer yet. This mission is extremely dangerous and may put you in a near-death situation. Tell us the answer after you think it through. Danzo frowned slightly, a hint of displeasure flashed in his eyes, but he said it. Yes, think about it carefully. This may be your last chance. Also, your team members have agreed to join you. Third generation slammed the table hard. That's enough, Danzo, stop talking and let Tsukumo make his own decision. Tsukumo's expression was struggling, and he looked extremely troubled. But in fact, this is just his disguise. He is calmly analyzing the current situation. On the surface, Lord Third Generation doesn't seem to support him taking on this mission. But who knows if he is playing a trick with Danzo? After pondering for a long time, Tsukumo asked. 2 adults, may I know the content of the mission in advance? Third Generation nodded. He took out a scroll from the drawer and handed it to Tsukumo. This mission is very special. You will understand after taking a look. Tsukumo took the scroll. After his eyes passed the information, he immediately understood the purpose of Third Generation. This is. Third Generation nodded slightly. Yes, he is still the target of your last mission. He has once again left his sphere of influence. Tsukumo's face looked a little ugly. The target that can make him defeat Konoha's White Fang is naturally not a simple character. At the beginning, he was unable to kill the opponent even though he calculated it mentally or unintentionally. Now that the opponent is on guard, the difficulty of the task will probably skyrocket. Silence fell in the Hokage office. After a long time, Tsukumo sighed, knelt down on one knee and said, Tsukumo, I would like to go. Third Generation is sitting at the table puffing away smoke. In the thick smoke, it was difficult to see the expression on his face. I understand, go back and prepare. Wait for Tsukumo to leave. Danzo said with a smile. Hiruzen, I don't understand what you're worried about. Although this mission is somewhat difficult, with Hitaki Tsukumo's mind and strength, it will only take some effort at most. Third Generation turned its head. He stared at Danzo expressionlessly, with an unexplainable meaning flashing in his eyes. Hope so. Danzo was stunned by the gaze of his old friend, and looked a little unnatural. Haha, there's still something going on at the root, so I'll leave first. In classrooms, Kazuki walked up and down the podium like a walking sleeping pill. Obito's head shook left and right, and his consciousness gradually began to blur. Kazuki was furious when he saw Obito's sleepy appearance. Oh, bit too. A piece of chalk passed through the air and landed accurately on Obito's head. U1S1, ninja's accuracy is no joke. Obito sat up straight in an instant and looked at Kazuki aggrievedly. Teacher, you can just hit me with a concealed weapon, why are you using chakra? Kazuki snorted. Some students have just achieved some results, and then they start to show off their hair. This style is unacceptable. Obito was speechless. Mr. Kazuki, you might as well just tell me your name. After giving Obito a lesson, Kazuki continued the class. Obito listened for a while and then started to hang up and get distracted. As early as when he was taking the English listening test in his previous life, he realized a truth. Some words should only be said to those who understand. ... The system has not sent any tasks, so what is the volume for? After class, Obito held Lin's little hand as usual and said with a smile. Lin-chan, today is the weekend, let's go out for dinner together, I'll treat you. Lin's face turned red and she retracted her hand. Obito-kun, so many people are watching. Lin-chan. At this moment, Obito only had Lin in his eyes. He felt that the emotions between the two were heating up rapidly. Pink petals seemed to be floating in the air. A hazy and ambiguous atmosphere quietly grew. But at this moment, an inappropriate voice sounded. Ahem, can you two take me with you? Obito turned around with a gloomy face, and then saw a lazy pineapple head. He narrowed his eyes slightly and stared at Lu Yu with an evil look. Well, Lu Yu murmured in his heart. Have you offended this guy Obito? The good atmosphere was ruined, Obito said unhappily. Yes, but you have to pay for it yourself. Shikaha scratched his head. Ah, that's natural, or I can treat you to dinner. Obito's face turned from cloudy to clear in an instant, and he showed a bright smile. Then why are you so embarrassed? What are you going to treat us to? Lu Yu, I'll treat you to barbecue. The three of them came to a barbecue restaurant. The young lady at the door's eyes lit up and she bent slightly towards them. Welcome, please come in. A touch of Snow White came into his eyes. Obito and Shikaha swallowed in unison. This kimono is also too loose, Shikaha thought. People should not be judged by their appearance. Although he looks like a 16-year-old, he has a mind of 36. This is Obito's idea. Led by the young lady, several people walked towards the barbecue shop. The young lady asked from the front, do you guys want anything? Shikaha thought for a moment and said, let's order the 3-point signature barbecue set meal. The young lady glanced at Lu Yu and her tone seemed a little strange. Are you sure you only want 3 portions? 3 portions of the signature set meal may not be enough for the 4 of you. Shikaha and the others are even stranger than the little sister. 4, aren't there only 3 of us? Misaka. The 3 of them widened their eyes at the same time, looking back as if they remembered something. I saw a black-haired girl wearing sunglasses standing behind a few people with an aggrieved look on her face. Obito patted his head in annoyance. How could we forget Ayako? Lin also said with a complicated look. Yes, we all agreed to have dinner together just now, but just now he couldn't remember the existence of Ayako, Shikaha added in his heart. He said to the young lady, please bring us 4 signature barbecues, thank you. The young lady responded with a sweet voice. Okay, everyone, please take a seat. The barbecue will be here soon. The 4 of them sat down at a table. The fragrant barbecue was delivered quickly. Everyone enjoyed the food and chatted. Lin put down the fork in her hand and said thoughtfully. Speaking of which, does any of you know what Kakashi has been up to lately? I haven't heard from him in a while. Chapter 21. Obito put down the chopsticks in his hand, feeling sour in his heart. The girl you love takes the initiative to care about other boys in front of you. I'm so depressed. Ayako shook her head and said, I don't know. Shikaha held his head in his hands and tilted his head lazily towards Obito. If you want to know about Kakashi, just ask the guy next to you. The person in our class who has the best relationship with Kakashi is probably him. After hearing what Shikaha said, Lin looked at Obito in surprise and asked with some expectation. Obito-kun, do you know how Kakashi is doing now? Obito groaned for a while and said reluctantly. Now that guy is either out on missions or practicing non-stop every day, so he doesn't have much free time. I heard him say a while ago that he wanted to take part in the Chunin exam. He is probably preparing for it recently. Ayako's little mouth opened slightly, looking very shocked. Chunin exam. If Kakashi passes, he will break Konoha's current record. Shikaha nodded. Well, he'll be the youngest Chunin in the history of Konoha. There are stars twinkling in Lin's big eyes. As expected of Kakashi-kun. Obito curled his lips in disgust. That guy Kakashi hasn't passed the exam yet, look at how excited you all are. Although he does pass, but you haven't seen the Hokage. I want to create a world without Kakashi. Obito dug into the barbecue a little irritably and did not participate in the conversation between the 3 of them. The three chatted for a while, and then the topic returned to themselves. We talked about where we plan to go after graduation. Ayako said first. Well, after I graduate, I should become a sentient ninja. Shikaha held his chin and said weakly. To be honest, I don't want to be a ninja. It's too much trouble. But in this regard, I don't seem to have the right to speak. Lin bent her big eyes and said with a smile. Shikaha-san is so smart, wouldn't it be a pity not to be a ninja? As for my words, I want to become a medical ninja. Saving lives and helping the wounded has always been my ideal. Obito-kun, what about you? He saw three people looking towards him. Obito put away the displeasure on his face and said shyly. I want to be a Hokage. Quote. Lu Yu and the other three said, you'd better hold back your words, Bito. We can't take your words. After eating, the four of them broke up. Shikabane and Ayako went back to their respective homes, each looking for their respective mothers. Obito held Lin's little hand and walked side by side with her. The night breeze brought bursts of coolness, and the moonlight sprinkled Madara's mottled silver glow. Everything, including her, was so peaceful. Obito wished he could hold Lin with him forever. Unfortunately, it only took 10 minutes to walk from the barbecue restaurant to the girl's house. Obito reluctantly let go of his hand. See you at the beginning of school, Rin-chan. Lin put her hands behind her back, tilted her little head, and said with a smile. Yeah, Obito-kun, please be careful on your way back. Obito nodded with a silly smile and started on the way home. We, the people, are so happy today. Sa Baining kills the black bone chicken, Sa Baining kills the black bone chicken. He was humming a little tune and was in a very good mood. But at this moment, an unspeakable sadness welled up in my heart. There was a heartbreaking pain in my chest. It hurt so much that Obito could hardly breathe. He fell to his knees, covering his chest in confusion. What's wrong with me? A curtain of light slowly unfolded in front of Obito. The light pouring down instantly enveloped him. The world in front of me suddenly changed. When Obito regained his vision, he found that he seemed to be taken to the other side of the world. Where is this? Why am I here? Obito stood up and looked around cautiously. He seemed to be in a street. The building that caught the eye looked particularly low, and the walls were painted with pale paint, which was very different from Konoha's style. Has this street been abandoned a long time ago? It's lifeless, a bit scary. The sky was cloudy. The drizzle seemed to be endless, falling one after another. On the groundwater, there are layers of ripples. Obito raised his arm and found that the raindrops penetrated directly into his body. And there is no reflection of myself in the stagnant water. Obito seemed to realize something. I don't really exist here at this moment. But what is going on with all this? Before Obito could think about it, a familiar figure broke into his sight. Hatake Tsukumo. Tsukumo looked terrible at this time. His clothes were covered in bloodline and his body was covered in scars. There was also a bloody hole as big as a fist on the left side of his lower abdomen. Obito was shocked and rushed towards Tsukumo. Uncle Tsukumo, what's wrong with you? Tsukumo suddenly looked at Obito, his eyes fierce, like a ferocious beast that chose people to devour. The surging murderous intent overflowed from Tsukumo. Almost like substance, wave after wave crashed towards Obito. This was the first time Obito saw Tsukumo like this. I was so shocked by his terrifying aura that I couldn't breathe. Obito said with some difficulty. It's me, Uncle Tsukumo, I'm Obito. Tsukumo's eyes were still cold, and the white fang in his hand was pointed directly at Obito's chest. If you don't show up sooner, you won't show up later, but you have to show up now. It's hard for you not to make me think too much. Obito seemed to have thought of something and suddenly looked behind him. Behind him, he saw more than a dozen figures appearing at some point, slowly surrounding Tsukumo. The leader said with a smile. Don't get me wrong, Tsukumo-sama, we are here to help you on orders from Danzo-sama. Tsukumo snorted and asked calmly. Are you really here to help me? The leader nodded slightly and said seriously. Of course we are here to help you get on your way. Before he finished speaking, more than a dozen people were already rushing towards Tsukumo. One of them passed directly through Obito's body on the way forward. Could it be? A not-so-good idea came to Obito's mind. He shook his head desperately. No, definitely not. Uncle Sakumo is so strong, nothing will happen to him. The two ninjas quickly formed seals and used combined ninjutsu in tacit agreement. Fire-style fire walking technique. Wind-style kamikaze. Hot flames spurted out, driven by the storm, and turned into a sea of fire. The stream of flames, enough to burn everything to death, rushed toward Sakumo like a rushing river. Obito watched with his heart in his throat. But Sakumo's speed was even faster than the wind. It's so fast that it's impossible to catch it with the naked eye. In the eyes of everyone present, a flash of silver thunder split the raging sea of fire into two. Also split in two was an unlucky root ninja. What a fast knife. A hint of surprise flashed in the leader's eyes. Master White Fang's strength really makes us admire you, but how long can you last despite being seriously injured? The wounds on Sakumo's body were bleeding profusely, and soon the water under his feet was stained red. But he remained as calm as ever, as if he was not the one facing a life and death crisis. Killing all of you is enough, he said calmly. The leader clapped his hands with a tone of approval and regret. No wonder Lord Danzo values you so much. With this magnanimity, do you think he is worthy of Sakumo-sama? He waved his hand behind him again. In that case, come out, and let's send Lord Sakumo on his way in glory. A figure hiding in a black robe quietly emerged from the shadows, watching Sakumo silently. With their ferocious masks and sharp blades, they are like a group of Shinigami harvesting life. Sakumo sighed softly again. He knew that he probably wouldn't be able to go back today. I finally completed the mission with a narrow escape, but I didn't expect that I would die in the hands of my own people in the end. Ah! Sakumo clenched the white fang in his hand and slowly walked towards the black-clothed ninjas. No one spoke. There was only the crisp sound of metal collision, which even sounded pleasant. The crowd seemed to be performing a silent mime. The lights of swords, shadows of swords, and staggered figures vividly demonstrate the art of power and speed. As the hero moved, the black-clad extras fell to the ground one by one, becoming the decorative foil of the stage. But two fists are ultimately unable to defeat four hands, and a hero will be exhausted. After a shocking action performance, the increasingly faster metallic sound pushed the drama to its final chapter. A broken blade flew out and landed heavily on the ground, which seemed to symbolize the hero's ending. The figure in the center of the crowd suddenly fell down, unable to stand up again. At this point, the whole play ends. A man walked out of the crowd, bowed slightly, and made his final bow. Sakumo-sama, you will be remembered as a hero in Konoha village. Please rest in peace. Sakumo lay on the ground and asked calmly, why? He, Hatake Sakumo, dedicated his life to the village, why was he treated like this? The leader sighed. Because you blocked Lord Danzo's way, blocked the way to our roots, and blocked Konoha's way. For the sake of the overall situation, some sacrifices are necessary. Sakumo chuckled, blood pouring from his mouth. You cannot represent Konoha. Sakumo-sama is wrong. The leader looked solemn, raised his right arm, and held it diagonally in front of his chest. Not only him, the ninjas behind him were all uniform and made the same action as him. Everyone said in unison, no name, no feelings. No past, no future. We are the roots that support the big tree of Konoha and are deeply rooted in the earth. Konoha thrives because of us. Sakumo simply closed his eyes. A bunch of brainwashed chess pieces, what nonsense do I talk to them about? The image of his son appeared in his mind. If he died, Kakashi would definitely be sad. But it's okay, little Obito will probably always be with him. Danzo, when you come down, Lousy will chop you to death with a knife. The leader straightened his robe. Looking at Sakumo who had lost his vitality, he waved his hand and said. The target is dead, the mission is completed, let's start cleaning up the scene. Finish it as soon as possible so that I can go back and resume my life with Lord Danzo. After hearing the words, one after another figures stepped forward and arranged the scene in an orderly manner how they wanted. Obito's face was ferocious, and he roared and rushed towards everyone. Assholes, I'm going to kill you. Ah, but at this moment, the scene in front of him suddenly froze, as if the pause button had been pressed. Then everything around him suddenly shattered, turned into pieces of light, and disappeared. Obito returned to the same place again. The clenched fingertips penetrated deeply into the flesh. Obito fell to his knees and punched the ground one after another. The gentle man who had no pretensions to being a strong man and would prepare delicious food for himself and teach him sword skills is no longer around. He had obviously dragged him out of despair, and had obviously changed the original tragedy. But you guys who are inhumane. How dare you? Anger, despair, resentment, murderous intention. All kinds of negative emotions impacted Obito's consciousness, raging in his heart. Click. There was a faint sound of something breaking in my mind, as if shackles were being opened. The moment the shackles were broken, a strange force surged out and penetrated Obito's optic nerve. Obito felt his eyes filled with blood. Among the scarlet, a black Magatama emerged. Driven by that power, the second Magatama is also slowly taking shape. But Obito's young body seemed unable to bear such intense power. The second Magatama slowly dissipated and once again occupied Obito's mind, waiting for its next birth. As this Sharingan, Obito murmured. He had no joy at all, and his heart was full of sadness. This is the first time he has experienced life and death in person since he came to this world. Ding! The system's emotionless voice sounded. The previous love video has finished playing, please host to start making selections. Important reminder. This choice will affect the development of the main plot, and the system will not release other multiple choice questions until the choice is completed. Please host choose carefully. 3 red exclamation marks in a row look very eye-catching. Obito frowned slightly. No other tasks can be triggered until the option is completed. This was the first time he had seen this kind of multiple choice question. Obito calmed down a little and looked at this multiple choice question. Option 1. Revenge for the White Fang, the owl leader Danzo. Completion reward. White Fang knife skills. Option 2. Revenge the White Fang and expose Danzo's shameless behavior to the public. Completion reward. Titanium alloy tombstone 1. Option 3. Forget White Fang, cut off worries. Completion reward. White Eyes 2. Option 4. Add the roots and act like a 25-year-old. Completion reward. Tongue eradicating seal 1. Option 5. Suffer silently and wait for the opportunity. Completion reward. Unknown. This. Obito's frown deepened. I developed forehead wrinkles at a young age. Tsukumo treated him well, and he regarded him as his elder. So he remembered this grudge. But with his current strength, he definitely wouldn't be able to kill Danzo. Going there would be like sending him to death. So what he originally wanted was to use the power of the system to quickly improve his strength. But the system doesn't seem to think so. After weighing it up, it seems that only option 5 is available. It's just that the system has no idea how long this forbearance will last, or when the opportunity will come. Even the reward is unknown. Never mind. So what if there is no system? I am Uchiha Obito. If you are afraid of a bird, just do it. So, he used his consciousness to focus on option 5. Danzo, you wait. 10 years, at most 10 years, I will definitely take your head. Obito walked to the door of his house with a heavy heart. He dusted himself off before entering the house. Grandma heard the sound and hurried out of the house, asking worriedly. Little Obito, why did you come back so late today? Nothing happened. Obito tried his best to smile, wanting his grandma not to worry. But while smiling, tears welled up. Grandma, I'm so sad. Grandma hugged Obito distressingly and patted his back gently. My dear grandson, what's wrong with you? She said a little angrily. Who bullied my little Obito? Grandma is going to settle the score with him. Obito said while whimpering. Grandma, you can't beat that person who bullied me. Grandma's eyes widened and she said angrily. If you can't beat him, let's call someone else. If Grandma can't beat him, just ask Xiaochuan to teach him a lesson. Even the Hokage can't bully my precious grandson. Obito hugged the old man tightly. Grandma, it's great to have you. Grandma touched Obito's head lovingly. He said no more and let his grandson lean into his arms. News of White Fang's death. With the help of caring people, it quickly spread in the village. Have you heard? Mr. White Fang unfortunately was seriously injured and died after completing a dangerous mission in order to recover the lost profits of the village. Hey, what did I mean? I have already said that Mr. White Fang is not a selfish person. You all believed it before, but are you convinced now? Come on, you were the one who scolded the most vigorously at that time. I was the one who kept defending Mr. White Fang. Bullshit, you're the one who speaks dirty words, okay. You stood in front of someone's house and scolded me for several days, but you still had the nerve to criticize me. The two people were discussing and then started fighting. The woman accompanying me tried to persuade him. Stop fighting, you guys, stop fighting. Some people passing by nodded in agreement. That's right, stop fighting. You are immune to death. The two are dancing vigorously. Ah, no. The two men who were fighting vigorously stopped dancing and looked aside fiercely. The passerby pushed the ninja forehead protector on his head and said calmly, "What are you looking at? Do you still want to hit me?" One man's expression changed. "You are joking, sir, but I have never seen such a handsome face, so I can't help but want to take a second look." Another man laughed. Yes, yes. The ninja waved his hand, not bothering to argue with a few people. Get out. Okay. The two men and one woman, as if they had been granted amnesty, left dejectedly, ready to do something to calm their nerves. The ninja spat disdainfully and whispered, "A group of capricious people in the market are really annoying." The companion beside him smiled helplessly. "Don't be familiar with them. They are just some poor people who have been manipulated. Let's think about how to appease our little teammate. I think he's not in the right mood these days." The first ninja said angrily. "Do you think I didn't try to comfort him? That kid is too lonely and ignores me at all. Everything he says should be ignored. I won't care about his last name anymore." The second ninja smiled even more helplessly. "Well, don't be so angry. Even if you admire Lord Whitefang, there is no need to change your last name. Okay, let's leave quickly. The setting sun dyed the clear sky red, like a flame burning in the sky. The yellow leaves flying all over the sky, accompanied by the cool breeze, add a bit of sadness to the world. A little man stands by the lake, looking at the setting sun like blood, listening to the sound of water sobbing. I feel mixed emotions in my heart. Before, whenever his father was free, he would take him here for an outing and tell him many principles of life. Today, the green mountains remain the same and the green water flows forever, but my father will never come back. Kakashi clenched his fists. I just feel like I'm holding a fire in my heart with nowhere to vent it. Kakashi. Obito looked at the figure not far away with a slightly complicated expression. He'd been looking for Kakashi for the past few days. But Kakashi seemed to be avoiding him and never showed up. I walked several places today and finally found him. Obito walked quickly to Kakashi's side and put his hand on his shoulder. Kakashi, have you been avoiding me? Kakashi turned his head and looked at Obito indifferently without saying a word. Seeing his appearance, Obito sighed and said with some heartache, Kakashi, I know you are in pain, but... Kakashi pushed Obito's arm away, feeling a little unstable. Stop talking to yourself. How can you understand my pain? Obito raised his cheeks, and his black eyes were instantly filled with blood. Trust me, I understand, really. Kakashi was stunned when he saw this, and asked hesitantly. You opened your eyes, when? Obito looked directly into Kakashi's eyes and spoke word by word. The moment I knew Uncle Sakumo was dead. Kakashi lowered his eyes and fell silent again. He didn't expect that Obito would activate Sharingan because of his father's death. Obito hugged Kakashi gently. I can understand how you feel, really. But I want to tell you that you are not alone, and I am here. Cheer up quickly. Uncle Sakumo definitely doesn't want to see you like you are now. Kakashi was finally moved. He hesitated for a moment and whispered in Obito's ear. Can you fight with me? Obito nodded heavily. Good. Two little people are by the lake. You punch me and I kick you. Neither of them had any intention of hiding. Let the opponent's attack fall on you, and then hit him back hard. Soon, they became two red pandas. Hit and hit. Kakashi roared, and Obito also roared. After venting, both Kakashi and Obito felt much better. The two sat on the ground panting. Seeing the other party's bruised nose and swollen face, they all laughed. Kakashi said seriously, Thank you, Obito. Obito waved his hand, hugged Kakashi and said, You're welcome, we are good brothers. Right, brother. Kakashi, night. Obito returned home with a bag on his head, feeling like a cephalosporin capsule. Grandma's voice trembled with distress when she saw him like this. Oh, my dear grandson, what's wrong with you? Did you get into a fight with someone at school? Obito smiled and shook his head. No, Grandma. It was when I was practicing physical skills with others that I accidentally received a few punches. Grandma was relieved. Grandma just said that the atmosphere in your school is still very good, and no one should bully you. Obito doesn't agree with his grandmother's statement. Grandma is so naive. As far as the environment in our school is concerned, when Son Hongli comes, we have to go to day school. Grandma took out the ointment from the house and scolded Obito while applying the ointment. If you don't tell me to be careful every day, you will let Grandma worry about you. Obito chuckled and nuzzled into Grandma's arms. I'm your eldest grandson. If you don't worry about it, who will? Grandma stabbed Obito in the head angrily. You little troublemaker. Grandma won't prepare you any delicious food tonight. Obito said, ah, and immediately started acting coquettishly. No, Grandma, it's okay if I'm wrong. Grandma pretended to be angry and asked with a straight face. Then tell me, where did you go wrong? Obito scratched his head and said. Where did I go wrong? Grandma is going to heat up some rice for you. There will be braised pork for you tonight. Obito hugged Grandma. Yeah, Grandma is the best. This world is not so hopeless, Obito thought silently. There are also beautiful beings like Grandma, Kakashi, and Lin who need to be protected by themselves. Those ambitious people who are trying to drag the ninja world into the abyss, prepare to face the judgment of Brother Tuzi. Life day by day, while remembering, while experiencing. Story after chapter, looking back, and moving forward. There are no more outrageous options given by the system. This day-to-day life seems to have become dull. Obito and Guy play cosplay in the woods every day. It's okay to chat with Kakashi, flirt with the little loli. Oh, that's right, we just don't study, we just play. Almost at the snap of a finger. Obito has reached the age where he is about to graduate. Over the past year, he has not made much progress in taijutsu and ninjutsu. He focused his main energy on practicing illusion. After all, since I have pink eye hereditary in my family, wouldn't it be a pity not to learn an illusion? With the help of his uncle Chuan Sang, he mastered the Uchiha clan's knowledge of genjutsu. He has learned 4 genjutsu including the Here Is Not technique, Narukumi technique, Mirror Sky and Earth Turn, and Shiranui. So now in terms of overall strength, he is already as good as some Chunin. I just don't know when this mission will be completed. Obito beeped secretly. Obito, Xiaolin is here to pick you up. Grandma shouted outside the house. Coming. Obito jumped up from the bed. He quickly put on his clothes, ran out of the room, scratched his head and asked. Lin-chan, why are you here today? Lin wore a light purple skirt and red-brown boots today. The long, dazzling white legs made Obito swallow his saliva. I am not an LSP, I swallowed because I was hungry. Lin put her hands behind her back and tilted her head. Today is the graduation ceremony, and I was afraid that you would be late again. So after thinking about it, I decided to pick you up. Obito said a little guilty. Lin-chan, you are worrying too much. How could I be late for such an important occasion as the graduation ceremony? Lin hummed noncommittally. You, hurry up and eat something. It's time for us to set off. Obito took 2 bites of food and said vaguely. It's so easy to mess with, let's go. Lin nodded and said obediently to her grandma. Then let's go, Grandma. Goodbye Grandma. Obito wiped his mouth and followed Lin outside. Grandma warned from behind. Xiaolin, Obito, you two should go slower on the road. Obito shouted without looking back. We know, don't worry Grandma. Sakura flowers scattered. Pink snowflakes are flying in the air, looking romantic and beautiful. Obito couldn't help but look at the girl next to him. The passing breeze blew a strand of hair beside her ear. The bright sunshine is not as good as her 3-point smile. Obito engraved this scene deeply in his mind. Even years later, he would still think of the scene today. The two came to the ninja school all the way. In the auditorium, 3rd generation sat on the stage with a smile on their face. Looking at the little people in the audience, the smile became brighter. These are all his future pillars of Konoha. When everyone is here. Next to 3rd generation, Urahara Kazuki stood up. He cleared his throat and started reading according to the script. Dear Hokage-sama, dear classmates, good morning. Today you will usher in the most important day of your life, which is your graduation ceremony. Teacher, I would like to congratulate everyone here first. Happy graduation. Obito was the first to take the lead and clapped very hard. Okay, well said Mr. Kazuki. Seeing his students giving face like this, Kazuki nodded with satisfaction and continued. Nohara Rin, Nagano-ha, Nara Shikabane, Yuhi Kurenai, Shizune, Aburame Ayako, Uchiha Obito, Sarutobi Asuma, and other students have completed their studies outstandingly with unremitting efforts and persistence. I declare that all the above students meet the assessment standards of Konoha Shinobi School and will all graduate. Obito clapped again. Okay, that's great. Kazuki coughed twice and quietly waved his hand towards Obito. Tell him to keep a low profile and not be so exaggerated. Now, everyone will go up to the stage in the order in which their names were called just now. Mr. Hokage will issue graduation certificates to everyone. Lin was the first to take the stage, bowed slightly towards third generation, and waited for third generation to issue her a certificate. Third generation asked with a smile. Little girl, what do you want to do after graduation? Lin said seriously. I want to be a medical ninja. Third generation nodded approvingly and handed the certificate to the little girl. Yes, Grandpa thinks you have potential in this area. Come on, little girl. If you encounter any difficulties, come to Grandpa for help at any time. Lin took the diploma and nodded slightly. Thank you, Grandpa Hokage. The second person to take the stage was Naganomi. When asked what he wanted to do in the future, he said with a proud look on his face, I will become a noble Jonin and leave my father speechless. The third generation looked at Kazuki aside with questioning eyes. Kazuki understood and whispered into the ears of third generation. His father, Nagano Kiku, was a Chunin. Third generation nodded blankly and handed Naganomi the diploma. Come on, boy. The third person to take the stage is Nara Shikabane. He said with a wry smile. Grandpa Hokage, can I choose not to be a ninja in the future? Third generation laughed. No, next. Quote. One by one, villains came on stage and then came off stage. Soon, it was Obito's turn. He jumped onto the stage. The third generation looked at the little guy from the Uchiha clan in front of them and asked with a smile. Little Obito, what do you plan to do after graduation? Do not know why. As soon as he saw the child in front of him, he liked him from the bottom of his heart. Obito said with a smile. My ideal is to become a Hokage, uproot all bad things, and protect the peace of Konoha village. Kazuki's expression changed slightly. Third generation was a little stunned when I heard it. After a moment, he smiled again. What a great idea, Obito-chan. But being a Hokage is not easy. You have to keep working hard. This is your diploma. Obito took the certificate with both hands and said happily. Thank you, Grandpa Hokage. Naganoha stood in the audience, curling his lips with some disdain. TCH, this guy Obito really dares to say it. Shikaha nodded sympathetically. When he said in front of Grandpa Hokage that he wanted to be a Hokage, Obito was so shameless and so courageous. After the remaining students came on stage one by one, this session was over. Kazuki walked to the stage again and said loudly. The moment you graduate from ninja school, it means you have become an official ninja. You will form a team of 3, and under the leadership of Jonin, you will begin to perform tasks for the village. Naganomi cheered from below. Yes, I can't wait for a long time. Shikaha complained lazily. Ah, it's really troublesome. Kazuki ignored the reactions of the little people and read out the list. The first group, Nagano-ha, Nara Shikaba, Aburame Ayako. The second group, the fifth group, Uchiha Obito, Hitaki Kakashi, Nohara Rin. When he heard the familiar grouping, Obito breathed a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that the plot would change because of him. We can't be grouped together with that guy Kakashi and Lin. Obito said happily to the girl next to him. Lin-chan, that's great, we are still in the same class. Yada, yada. Lin spread her hands, hiding the joy in her heart, and joked. What's better, I have to continue to take care of you in the future. Well, Obito scratched his head in embarrassment. But he didn't notice the slight smile on Lin's lips. Lu Yu on the side complained while holding his head. Ah, why are we grouped with such a troublesome guy? It's really troublesome. Naganoha snorted and said very unhappy. You guys, are you talking about me? Lu Yu also snorted coldly and said lazily. I'm not naming names, but some people are self-aware. Naganoha was furious. 8 Yalu. Let's duel, Shikaha. Ayako stood between the two of them helplessly. We will all be in the same class from now on, so don't have any conflicts. After reading the group list, Kazuki then explained each group, the time and place where they would meet. Then he made his final speech. Come here. The graduation ceremony is completely over. Kazuki accompanied third generation and left first. The little people stayed where they were and chatted. Shikaha walked to Obito and sighed. I thought I could be in a group with you, who knew? Obito patted Shikaha's shoulder. It's okay. At least Ayako is still on your team. Just ignore that guy. Nagano waved his teeth at Obito. Obito, let's duel. Let me decide your head. Obito complained secretly in his mind. I ask you not to speak so youthfully, please be normal. Asuma glanced at the boy. I have no interest in talking to a few people. He shook his head and left first. The girls are very harmonious there. Lin, Shizuka, Ayako, Kurenai and others were chatting and laughing, looking very happy. The young man didn't know what it was like to be sad, and he was immersed in the joy of graduation at this moment. But I don't know that after graduation, some people may never see them again. A clearing outside the leaf forest. A figure hurriedly ran over. Panting, he bent over and breathed heavily. Hug, sorry for keeping everyone waiting. A silver-haired boy crossed his arms and frowned. You're too slow, Obito. The girl next to the boy nodded in agreement. We've been waiting for you for a long time. Between Kakashi and Lin, stood a blonde young man wearing a Jonin vest. He looked at Obito and said with a smile on his face. Finally, you are Obito. This yellow hair is so handsome. The blue eyes are as clear as gems and as deep as a clear spring. The moment he smiled, Obito felt like his DNA was moving. There was a sound directly in my ears. The key is the key capital, the key rice is the key mud belt. Although you are the enemy, you are not bad. I am Namikaze Minato, and I will be your responsible Jonin from today on. Please take good care of me in the future. Obito straightened up and gave Minato a thumbs up. Yoshi. Minato clapped his hands and said with a smile. Okay, now that everyone is here, let's briefly introduce ourselves to each other. Everyone already knows my name. I like reading, especially novels written by Jiraiya-sama. There is nothing particularly annoying. Okay, who's next? Book of Formation. Minato is a nerd in daily life. When he has no tasks, he will read books all day long. Obito covered his mouth and snickered. He naturally knew that the book Minato was talking about was The Story of Strong Perseverance. But Kakashi and Lin don't know. After Jiraiya launches the Intimate Paradise series, Teacher Minato is afraid that he will be victimized by the scandal. I'll go first, Minato-sensei. Lin volunteered and raised her little hand. I am Nohara Lin, and I like companions who are by my side. Having said this, Lin glanced at Obito quietly. But Obito was smiling stupidly, immersed in his own world. Didn't notice this scene. Lin paused, then continued. Like Minato-sensei, there's nothing I particularly dislike. Minato nodded approvingly towards Lin. Then he looked at Kakashi aside. Kakashi said calmly. Kakashi, there's nothing I like or dislike. Ah, is this little guy so indifferent? Minato wiped his nose helplessly and said to Obito. It's your turn, Obito. Obito patted his chest and said. What I like is black, study. What I hate most is going to school. My ideal is to become a Hokage. Minato nodded thoughtfully. Through the brief introduction just now, he also had a general understanding of the three students' personalities. This little girl Nohara Rin is very well behaved and should be a worry-free apprentice. But the other two little guys have very distinct personalities, or a little weird. I'm afraid it's not easy to lead my own team. But that's kind of fun, isn't it? Minato chuckled lightly, stood opposite the three people, and said. Yoshi, let's do the initial exercise with the four of us first to test your teamwork skills. Group, teamwork. Obito and Kakashi looked at each other, feeling guilty. Lin repeated with some confusion. Teamwork, Minato took out 2 bells from his pocket and waved them in front of the 3 people's eyes. Well, this is the content of the exercise. As long as you can grab these 2 bells from the teacher, you will pass. Obito said with a look of amazement. What a delicate bell. Teacher, where did you get it from? Can you show it to me? Minato smiled and put the bell on his waist, shook his head and said. Nice try, but no, Obito. Obito didn't expect his little trick to work, so he just sighed with regret. Then Mr. Minato, can you give us some time to discuss tactics? Minato nodded slightly. Okay, the teacher will give you half an hour. The 3 villains walked far away, got together, and began to discuss. Obito looked at Kakashi and asked. Kakashi, you are more experienced, what do you think we should do in a while? Kakashi thought for a moment and said. In a while, Lin will be responsible for containing Mr. Minato from a distance. The 2 of us will attack closely, using the 2-person formation taught in the school. You try to distract Mr. Minato while I take the main attack. Besides, we can also. Obito nodded and said, okay, I have no objection. Lin also nodded her little head and said, just do what Kakashi-kun said. After the 3 people finished their discussion, they walked toward Minato from 3 directions in a tacit understanding, vaguely sandwiching him in the middle. Ah, have we discussed it? Minato asked. Obito pulled down his goggles and nodded towards Minato. Yes, Mr. Minato. Minato smiled. Okay, let's get started. The moment you hear it start. Kakashi and Obito rushed out of their place almost instantly and headed straight for Minato. The 2 of them rushed forward and quickly threw shurikens. Ding 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 ding. Minato raised his hand to take out the kunai, waved his arms, and easily blocked the dense shurikens. A chill came from behind. The corners of Minato's mouth curled up slightly, and he dodged the attack of the little girl behind him. What a speed! Obito was secretly shocked. Is this the fastest man in the ninja world? 10 little Narutos in 1 second, ahem. Seeing that the distant attack was fruitless, Kakashi pulled out the short sword from behind, tapped his toes, and rushed towards Minato at a faster speed. Obito followed closely behind, kunai in hand, and surrounded Kakashi. Minato's eyes focused and he instantly saw what the 2 were trying to do. Do you want to force me to take the move head-on, expose my back, and create opportunities for Lin? Minato nodded secretly. Yes, there are already some signs of teamwork. But at this level, it's not enough. Saw. Kakashi's short sword slashed down sharply, making a whimpering sound as it rubbed against the air. Minato advanced instead of retreating, raised the kunai with his backhand, and faced the short sword with a slightly staggered figure. Zizzizi. A tooth-breaking sound of metal friction sounded. Where the 2 swords met, there were faint sparks flickering. Minato's arm moved backwards, and the kunai in his hand sliced past, directly deflecting Kakashi's attack. Then he suddenly jumped forward and hid himself behind Kakashi. Lin lost her attack target, and Obito had to stop. Kakashi, retreat! Obito shouted. Hearing this, Kakashi feinted a knife attack and then retreated violently backwards. Obito made seals with his hands, his Adam's apple twitching. Fire-style great fireball technique. A hot ball of flame appeared and roared towards Minato. A trace of surprise flashed in Minato's eyes. He tapped his toes lightly on the ground and quickly avoided the scope of the flame explosion. Obito didn't expect to be unable to hit anyone. Technique could really hit people. He took this opportunity to join up with Kakashi and lunged at Minato again. As soon as Minato landed, ferocious attacks from the 2 followed. Kakashi's sword was drawn at a tricky angle, almost heading straight for the vital point. Obito has a kunai. Coupled with his fist and kick skills, he can fight like a tiger. Minato casually knocked away the hidden weapon thrown by the girl in the distance, and was quite satisfied with the performance of the others. Good. Kakashi's actual combat ability is almost on par with some Jonin. Obito's overall level is no less than that of some senior Chunin. No wonder Mr. Third Generation specifically proposed at that time that he must take over this class. These are 2 good seedlings. ... Of course, the little girl's performance is equally remarkable. Minato and the 2 little guys moved around while fighting. Before he knew it, he arrived at the place where Obito and the others were discussing tactics. Now, Kakashi shouted. Yoshi. Obito responded. The two of them joined forces and launched attacks at the same time, forcing Minato to take a step back. Behind Minato, the seemingly flat ground suddenly collapsed, revealing a huge pit. The corners of Minato's mouth curled up slightly unnoticeably. Are there any traps set? Very good. He pretended not to react. When jumping into the air, he deliberately paused his body, leaving a gap. The three little guys rushed towards him. At last, a small hand successfully grabbed the bell on his waist. 4 people landed at the same time. Kakashi half knelt on the ground and slowly spread his hands. There was a bell lying quietly inside. Obito sat on the ground, breathing heavily. Great, we succeeded. Lin also clenched her little hands in joy. Yes, Minato had a smile in his eyes and was very satisfied with the performance of his 3 apprentices. Very good, I declare that everyone has passed the assessment. At this time, a long-lost reminder sounded in Obito's mind. Successful selection. Get reward. Thunder. I'm cuffed. Is my system finally back? Obito seemed to realize something. 2 years ago, he chose to remain silent and wait for an opportunity. Now the system prompts him to complete the task. That is to say, does this opportunity refer to successfully becoming a disciple of Mr. Minato? No matter what, it's a good thing that the system is back. Obito focused his mind on the interface and looked at the reward this time. Thunder. At the critical moment of life and death, your attack will be accompanied by the power of thunder. It's like a gentle elder, silently watching and protecting you, helping you smash the darkness with thunder. When you see the reward description, Obito felt that the handsome old man seemed to reappear in front of his eyes. Memories of the past came flooding back. Obito froze, tears bursting out of his eyes. Woo 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 woo. Minato was shocked. Obito, what's wrong with you? This kid was smiling just now, why did he suddenly cry uncontrollably? Known as the Yellow Flash, he was at a loss for a while. This was his first time taking on a disciple and he had no experience at all. Who am I? Where am I? What should I do? Obito sobbed while wiping his tears. Woo-woo, I'm so, woo-woo, happy to be your student. Ah this. Minato breathed a sigh of relief, patted Obito's back, and said softly. The teacher is very happy to have a student like you. You, please don't cry. Kakashi said silently in his mind. Then you were really happy too early. Lin also followed Minato to comfort Obito. But Obito still kept talking. Minato said helplessly, don't cry, Obito. To celebrate the founding of our class, the teacher will treat you to dinner tonight, okay? Obito whimpered. Ah, that's so embarrassing. How about we go eat barbecue? Minato, the 4 of them sat down at a barbecue restaurant. Minato said while grilling meat for several people. Then starting from tomorrow, you will have to carry out the mission. Obito said excitedly after swallowing a piece of grilled meat. Great, I've wanted to go out and have a look for a long time. Minato put the grilled meat on Obito's plate and said with a smile. Having said that, the missions you took on at the beginning should all be from the village. For example, help with tasks such as retrieving pets and finding lost items. Ah this. Obito sighed. Sure enough, you still can't avoid these chores in the early stage. As everyone knows, in the world of Hokage, the first task of any newly formed team must be to help find cats. Just like the first mission in the Lord God space is always biohazard. Lin didn't have any problem with this. There is nothing wrong with taking it step by step. Minato thought for a moment and looked at Kakashi aside. Kakashi has participated in many actual battles. Doing these tasks now may make you feel dissatisfied. However, you still have to complete it seriously. Kakashi nodded slightly, said nothing, and glanced at Obito beside him. If you are with this guy, just waste some time, just waste some time. Obito raised the cup in his hand with a smile. Let's all have a drink to celebrate the founding of our Minato class. Cheers. The 4 cups clinked together, and everyone had a smile on their face. If nothing unexpected happens, they will become the most important bond between each other in the future. The next day, as Obito expected, the first task their class received was to find a lost kitten. The 3 decided to split up and gather at the agreed-upon location before lunch. No. Not here either. Lin walked through the streets. After searching every corner, there was still no trace of the kitten. Passing a corner, she happened to run into Kakashi and waved quickly and asked, "Kakashi-kun, did you find it?" Kakashi shook his head and said, "No, I got nothing here." Lin sighed after hearing this and straightened her somewhat messy hair. "I didn't find it either. It turns out that even finding a pet is so troublesome." Kakashi nodded, quite agreeing with Lin's point of view. "Having said that, if we can't even complete this small task, we will never be able to carry out the real mission. By the way, where's Obito?" Lin spread her hands and said she didn't know either. Obito said he had an idea he wanted to try, but he didn't know where it went. 3 pulls in the sun. At the place agreed upon by several people. Obito appeared with a smile holding a kitten in his left hand and several bags in his right hand. "Here, the kitten was found, thanks to the help of the grandmas. The grandmas also gave me some pastries. Let's eat some together later," Lin said with a look of amazement. Obito-kun's popularity among the old ladies is really amazing. Being late every day is not in vain. Obito raised his cheeks triumphantly. "That is, my native brother gave me the nickname Grandma Killer. If one day I don't want to work hard anymore, how about I just eat soft food until I die?" Minato commented with a smile. "It's convenient for others and it's convenient for yourself. This is Obito's good deeds being rewarded." Obito looked at Kakashi, who was silent and looking slightly depressed. He clicked his tongue and shook his head. This guy is still young and doesn't understand the importance of connections. Let's take a straightforward example. Take a look at the previous Hokage candidates. I believe everyone understands it. If you don't understand, it's useless to talk about it. Afternoon. The 4 of them gathered at the training ground by the forest. For ninjas, accomplishing tasks is important, but so is daily practice. The soles of your feet are the most difficult place to condense chakra. Climbing trees with your feet can better train your ability to refine, maintain and control chakra in your body. After Minato finished speaking, he smiled and clapped his hands. "Lin, come and try it first." Lin nodded her little head and rushed towards the big tree in front of her with some anxiety. When there is only 1 step away from the big tree, the little girl jumped up and stepped on the surface of the big tree. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Oops, the chakra at Lin's feet suddenly dissipated. After the absorption force disappeared, he fell down with a backflip. Lin looked at Minato with some anxiety. Minato smiled and nodded to Lin, indicating that she was doing well. "You come next, Kakashi," Minato said. Kakashi nodded slightly, took a few steps forward, and stepped on the tree. Subsequently, he walked up step by step, as if strolling in a leisurely manner. The surface of the uneven tree surface was like walking on flat ground, and we quickly climbed to the crown of the tree. Lin looked at the silver-haired boy with admiration. "Kakashi-kun is so awesome. You finished it so easily." Kakashi said nothing. He turned around and glanced sideways at Obito before he landed smoothly from the top of the tree. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Obito is so angry. In his eyes, Kakashi is provoking himself in Kaiguogo. He said with an unconvinced look. "What does this mean? It just has legs, doesn't it?" He walked to a big tree and said angrily. "Look, I'll give you a more powerful one." "Oh," Minato looked at Obito in surprise, feeling a little expectant in his heart. Could it be that there is a better way for Obito to exercise the control of chakra? Kakashi also stared intently, wanting to see what medicine Obito was selling in his gourd. "Come on, Obito-kun. Pay attention to safety," Lin said, waving her little fist. Obito turned his head. Chao Lin gave a thumbs up, showing her white teeth. "Yoshi, just watch it, Lin." I saw that behind his hands, his whole body was pressed against the tree. Then it twisted its waist like a snake, climbed up the tree trunk lightly, twisted and climbed up. On the way to crawl, Obito even sticks out his tongue once or twice like Lion Majesty spitting out letters. Minato's expectant expression froze. Lin's little mouth couldn't close. Kakashi's eyes almost burst. The 3 of them were completely shocked. Anyone with a sound mind would be able to come up with this kind of posture. Is this really a gesture that mammals can do? When Orochimaru sees this, he has to call him an expert. After Obito climbed to the top of the tree, he turned around nimbly and climbed down gracefully. He landed softly on the ground and said with his hands on his hips triumphantly. How about Rin-chan, Minato-sensei? My performance just now was much better than that guy Kakashi. This is a training method he developed himself while learning to climb snakes. It can not only complete the system's tasks, but also exercise waist and abdominal strength and improve the body's control over chakra. It can be said that it achieves many benefits with one stone. Might Guy has said it is good after using it. Obito feels that he is simply a genius. Otherwise, how could you possibly come up with such a magical practice method? Quote. Minato opened his mouth, but finally chose silence. He seemed to have said nothing, and yet he seemed to have said everything. Minato felt that he was careless at first. You should think more carefully before accepting a disciple. He dried up and fell into silence. He regretted it impulsively. Obito immediately looked at Kakashi provocatively. Kakashi silently raised his hand to his forehead. He thought to himself that he was such an idiot for expecting something like this from an idiot like Obito. Quote. Lin also fell silent. Obito's posture just now had a huge impact on her. This situation, even if she wanted to comfort Obito, she didn't know how to speak. Well, Obito scratched his head in embarrassment. No one is talking. Did I mess up again? Minato had already recovered from the shock and spoke with some difficulty. No, Obito's method is indeed original and unique, which makes the teacher amazed. Obito murmured a little in his heart. Original and new. Why does this sound so awkward? Is Minato-sensei praising me? Before he could think about it, Minato continued. Kakashi and Obito, you two have reached a very high level of control over chakra. In this case, your next training content should focus on actual combat. Minato's index and middle fingers were together, and his hands were crossed into a cross. Card to my heart Nokis. Shadow clone technique. Puff. After a burst of smoke dissipated, another Minato appeared in the place. Let's go to the woods for actual combat training. Minato A said to the two of them. Kakashi and Obito nodded and followed Minato A's pace. Aside, Minato B looked at Lin and said in an encouraging tone. Lin, you continue to practice climbing trees. The teacher is here to accompany you. Lin nodded heavily. Okay, Mr. Minato. Looking at the three people walking into the forest in the distance, Lin secretly encouraged herself in her heart. Lin, you have to work hard and come on. Kakashi and Obito are both so good, you can't hold them back. In the woods, Minato stopped the two of them. After carefully looking at the surrounding environment, he nodded with satisfaction. Okay, let's train here. Kakashi and Obito looked at each other. They all saw the excitement in each other's eyes. Minato formed a seal with his hands again and shouted. The card is for Benshin Nokis. In a blink, next to Obito and Kakashi, a Meowman with 3 floors on the inside and 3 floors on the outside appeared. Without any exaggeration, a huge crowd of people filled the spacious forest clearing. Obito felt that his white soul was burning. Minato Morosai, this move of yours is so cool. Can you teach it to me? Minato smiled slightly and was about to speak. Minato beside him spoke first. Okay, if you can pass the actual combat training later, I will teach you the shadow clone technique. Yoshi. Once he heard about the reward, Obito became even more motivated. He pulled down his goggles and asked expectantly. So Minato-sensei, what is the content of our practical training? Minato spoke slowly. I will throw shurikens at you in the forest later. As long as you can survive my attack for half an hour, you will pass the training. Ah, this. Obito glanced at the densely packed Minato, and his whole body became numb. Minato-sensei, let's get started. Kakashi said solemnly. Minato nodded, glanced at his two students, and warned. If you can't hold on for a while, remember to stop training immediately and don't hold on. You will get injured. Okay, Mr. Minato. Seeing the two of them nodding in agreement. The Minatos dispersed into the forest, and the sounds came from all directions. Then training. Start. Kakashi pulled out his short sword. Obito pouted and pulled out 2 kunai. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Continuous sounds of breaking through the air sounded. Kunai flew out of the forest one after another. It attacked the two of them from all tricky angles, covering almost all directions they might avoid. Ding 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 ding. The swords and weapons met, and sparks flew everywhere. The short sword in Kakashi's hand turned into an afterimage. Form an airtight defense. Stop all the overwhelming shurikens. Obito was also not to be outdone, waving the kunai in both hands very fast. Shurikens fell in front of him and soon covered the ground. Minato, hiding in the shadows, nodded secretly. He was quite satisfied with their performance. If Kakashi is outstanding, it is what he expected. The excellence Obito showed was a complete surprise. It seems like we need to make it a little more difficult for the two little guys. Minato whispered. 20 minutes later, Obito complained in a voice that only he could hear. I'll go. Teacher Minato's hand is so quick. Can Master Mew tolerate it? The number of shurikens flying out of the woods was increasing, and their attack speed was getting faster and faster. However, Minato seems to be tireless and continues to shorten the interval between each shot. The so-called happy hand of a rich woman is nothing more than that. Obito shouted to Kakashi, who was standing aside. Hey, Kakashi, how long have we been holding on? Kakashi's breath was up and down as he spoke, and he was obviously a little exhausted. It should be more than 20 minutes, and there are at most 10 minutes left. When Obito heard this, he immediately became energetic. Yoshi. But within a few minutes of vibrating, Obito soon died. After resisting 3 more rounds of attacks, he felt that he could no longer withstand it. If he hadn't been swinging a knife every day before, he probably wouldn't be able to lift his arm now. Seeing dozens of shurikens attacking again, Obito simply slapped the ground with both hands. Earth-style wall. A short wall with a dog's head carved on it rises up, just enough to wrap Obito inside. The shuriken clattered against the earthen wall, which made Obito's heart skip a beat. Kakashi next to Obito, after blocking a wave of attacks. I turned around and saw this scene. He asked very puzzledly. You only have so little chakra left, and you still carve a dog's head on the earth current wall. Are you mentally ill? Kakashi said in his heart. Obito said, cut, and didn't bother to pay attention to Kakashi. You were nothing but a dog in your last life. Why didn't you hold up Reikiri and chat with me for several episodes? You have the nerve to talk to me. I won't lend you my number for anything in this life. Let's see how you can keep up with others in the future. Time passed quietly. There is only half a minute left before the half-hour time limit. Obito breathed out a sigh of relief. It seems that this practical training is stable. That's when the idea came to him. Minato suddenly appeared behind him and kicked him away. Quote ? Obito flew out upside down with a question mark. Until he saw Kakashi flying over too. Only then did I feel a lot more balanced. The two fell heavily to the ground and got up from the ground with grinning teeth. Kakashi looked at Minato with some confusion. Minato-sensei, you. Minato looked at the two little guys. He didn't smile as usual, but said seriously. This is the first lesson I teach you about actual combat. That is, in actual combat, the enemy will never follow the so-called rules and play cards according to your expectations. On the battlefield, they will do everything they can to go against the rules, take you by surprise, and catch you off guard. If you are not prepared for any eventuality, death awaits you. Kakashi and Obito chewed Minato's words over and over again, thinking and understanding. After a while, Kakashi nodded. I understand, Minato-sensei. Obito said, me too. He looked a little disappointed. It seems that shadow clone technique is not available today. The extended party is crying bitterly, seeing his two apprentices understand his good intentions. Minato then smiled again. The teacher is very satisfied with the performance of you two just now. I'll consider you to have passed. He formed a seal with his hands and created a shadow clone again. Shadow clone, Minato said. Obito, come with the teacher and I will teach you the shadow clone technique. The main body looked at Kakashi aside and said, Kakashi, you stay and spar with the teacher and continue to hone your taijutsu. Kakashi and Obito responded in unison. Yes, Mr. Minato. Obito followed Shadow Clone to a clearing. Minato introduced Obito in detail. Shadow Clone technique is a B-level ninjutsu developed by Master Second Hokage. It uses chakra to create a physical clone, just like me now. I have an independent consciousness and a certain ability to resist attacks. I can think and fight like the original body. When the shadow clone technique is released, my memories and experiences will return to the original body, and I will wait for the next call from the original body. Obito nodded repeatedly. He said to himself that shadow clone brothers are so selfless. Be willing to sacrifice yourself and contribute to the essence. I was touched. Minato then talked to Obito about some key points of shadow clone technique. Quote. Okay, that's probably it. Come and try it, Bito. Obito nodded slightly. Make the Ren seal with your hands and slowly mobilize the chakra in your body. The card is for Benshin Nokis. Puff. A puff of smoke appeared and dissipated. Next to Obito, there is another Obito. It's just that this Obito doesn't look like a very normal Akko. Because a normal person shouldn't have a head bigger than his body. Well, it seems to have failed. Obito looked at the big-headed baby next to him and lifted the shadow clone technique with some embarrassment. Minato laughed. It's okay. B-level ninjutsu is not that easy to learn. Let's try again. Obito nodded heavily. Yoshi, the moon quietly climbed up into the sky, and night slowly enveloped the earth. Obito stopped trying in frustration. To the end. He still couldn't master the shadow clone technique smoothly. Seeing this, Minato patted his head and said, "Don't be discouraged, Bito. In a week at most, you will be able to master the shadow clone technique." Obito nodded heavily. I understand, Minato-sensei. The four met outside the woods. Today's training is over here. I'm leaving now. Goodbye everyone. Obito was not very interested. After saying goodbye to Kakashi and others, he left in a hurry. Lin said a little strangely. What's wrong with Obito-kun? In the past, he would accompany her home, Lin said secretly in her heart. Minato said softly. It must be that today's practice was not satisfactory. I don't know why, Obito seems to have very high requirements for himself. Kakashi looked at Obito's leaving figure, touching his forehead protector thoughtfully. If I am young and capable and don't feel inferior, I can drive Susanoo Kamui. Obito hummed a song in a depressed tone and returned home unhappy. After saying hello to Grandma, I dived into my little bed. Today's practice was not going well, and he was inevitably a little restless. There are less than 5 years left before my death date, but Obito let out a long sigh. Although his current strength has already surpassed many of his peers. But Obito knew it very well. In the eyes of a truly strong man, he is just a younger brother, far from being the king or father. The Battle of Kanabi Bridge, the death of Lin, the rebellion of Nine Tails, Yuzin of Uchiha. This series of tragedies is like a mountain. Pressing on him, he was a little breathless. Why, with his current strength, trying to stop this majestic trend is like Mantis trying to block a chariot. But, you can't just do nothing, right? But what can I do? Obito lay on the bed, lost in thought. In addition to relying on the system, what other arrangements can I make? Moods flow. Obito's thinking is completely divergent and his imagination is wide open. List all kinds of wild ideas in your mind. His eyes suddenly lit up. He sat up from the bed suddenly, and whispered excitedly. I thought of it. He thought of a way to resolve the Nine Tails chaos. It doesn't matter who Uchiha Madara uses as a pawn, my move will work. Obito muttered. What was the cause of the Nine Tails rebellion? Nine Tails Jinchuriki, also known as Master Kushina. The seal in the body weakened during childbirth, which allowed me to. Only then did the mysterious masked man take advantage of the situation. So while Konoha is still strong now, I can definitely think of a way to get little Naruto to arrive early. Or, just castrate Mr. Minato. Then the problem will be solved. The more Obito thought about it, the more he felt that his idea was feasible. Minato-sensei is so kind to me, I should do all this for him. Yeah. It was at this moment that Obito made up his mind. The system provides new multiple choice questions. Option 1. Plan secretly and find a way to have Naruto born early. Completion reward. 1 card chakra. Option 2. Plan secretly and find a way to make Mr. Minato extinct. Completion reward. White Eyes 2. Option 3. Plan secretly and find a way to make Mrs. Kushina infertile. Completion reward. White Eyes 2. Option 4. Dark, commit suicide directly to resolve the Nine Tails chaos. Completion reward. Kowloon Coffin Pulling Service 1. Obito didn't even look at the next 3 options. The system would always give some outrageous options, and he was used to it. Just deduct 1 directly. The completion reward is actually 1 card of chakra. This is so cool, Obito said with emotion. But then he thought about it. 1 card of chakra is just 0.01 chakra, nothing more. It's not okay to not have this reward, either. Obito lay down on the bed again. Well, then we should think about how to make Minato-sensei do it faster. Soon, he came up with a careful plan. If you don't brag, you won't be slanderous, and if you talk about crooked thinking, Bito, has never convinced anyone. The next day, it was time to take a rest. Obito searched all the way and walked into a pharmacy. A woman with beautiful features and outstanding temperament sat in front of the counter. She propped her chin up with 1 arm, and a pair of pillows were spread out on the table. Obito was dumbfounded by the sheer scale. I saw someone coming into the store. The woman lifted the hair from her face with a delicate hand and asked in a lazy voice. Little guy, what medicine do you want to prescribe? The woman's movement made Obito understand what it meant to be magnificent and turbulent. Obito's Adam's apple twitched and he stammered. I'm going to prescribe some tonics. It's the kind of drug that makes couples talk more happily and louder at night. The landlady glanced at Obito suspiciously. He even looked at a certain place emphatically. Little brother, why are you prescribing this medicine? You don't seem to be able to use it, right? Gone. Obito thought to himself, it seems that he has been looked down upon, underestimated. Of course it's not for me. I bought it for my master and mistress. Upon hearing this, the landlady gave Obito a thumbs up. She said with her narrow red phoenix eyes bent. Little brother, we don't see many juniors as filial as you. Obito raised his chin slightly proudly. That's natural. A filial child like me. In the ninja world, even if you carry a lantern, you can't find another one. Of course, if you have to count Black Zetsu and 1 to 7, there's nothing I can do about it. The landlady got up and went to grab medicine for Obito. So Obito naturally took another look at the boss lady's back. It's really a worthwhile trip, Obito thought to himself. But soon, he stopped laughing. The landlady placed a packet of medicine on the table and gestured towards Obito. Obito's whole body was in bad shape. Why is it so expensive? The landlady shrugged her shoulders, a hint of ridicule flashing in her eyes. Then do you want it or not, little brother? Obito gritted his teeth. He took out all his savings and slapped them on the table. Want? Why? I watched half my life savings being taken away. Obito felt like his heart was bleeding. Teacher Minato. If you don't work for a few hours every night, you're sorry for my little money. He carried the medicine bag and hurried out of the pharmacy. He wanted to leave this sad place as soon as possible. The landlady looked at this scene with a smile. What a funny little guy, she murmured. Return home. Obito put the medicine bag away first, and then ran to Grandma's house. Grandma, I want to take a jar of the fruit wine you brewed and give it to our teacher. Our teacher is very kind to me, so I just thought of bringing something to visit him. After hearing what her grandson said, Grandma naturally had no objection. Okay. Do you need Grandma to go with you, little Obito? Also, is 1 jar enough? If not, bring a few more jars. We have plenty of fruit wine at home. Obito said with a smile. I can just go by myself, Grandma. Let's take a jar first. I'm afraid the teacher won't be able to bear it. Grandma didn't quite understand what her eldest grandson said, so she nodded in confusion. It seems that Mr. Sun's drinking capacity is not very good. I don't even dare to drink more fruit wine. After talking to Grandma, Obito went to the kitchen to grab a jar of fruit wine and returned to his house. He opened the medicine package and carefully read the instructions inside. There are 60 sachets in total. Just mix it with water and take 1 sachet a day, which is enough for 2 months. Obito was lost in thought. After a while, he opened the wine jar and poured 10 packets of medicine into it. This much should have some effect, he muttered quietly. Obito ran to the kitchen again and came back with a small spoon. Stir for a while. After the powder was completely dissolved, he took a small sip. Well, it still tastes fragrant and sweet, so it shouldn't be a big problem. He installed the wine jar again, then carried the small wine jar out of the door. Grandma, I'm going out and I'll be back soon. Grandma's voice came from the house. Slow down on the road, Obito. Obito shouted back. I know, Grandma, In order to make it easier for students to contact him, Minato told his 3 apprentices his home address. Obito trotted along according to the address and soon arrived at the door of Minato's house. Dong dong dong. Obito knocked gently on the door. A female voice sounded from inside the house. Hey, Minato, someone seems to be knocking on the door. Minato's voice sounded immediately. You keep cooking, Kushina, I'll go take a look. The sound of footsteps was heard, and the door was quickly opened. Obito. Minato looked at the little man in front of him in surprise. How did you come? Obito said with a smile. I came here specifically to visit you. My grandma just made some new fruit wine, so I thought of bringing you a jar. With that said, Obito handed the wine jar in his hand to Minato. Minato reached out to take the wine jar and rubbed Obito's head. You're so thoughtful, Obito. Come in and sit down. You, the mistress is cooking. Please stay and have something to eat together. Obito's head shook like a rattle. Even if he starves to death, he will not take a bite of the food cooked by his wife. No need, Mr. Minato, my grandma has prepared the food at home, so I won't cause any trouble to you. He said with a smile, I'm leaving now. I'll see you tomorrow, teacher. See you tomorrow, Obito. Minato looked at Obito's leaving figure, then looked at the wine jar in his hand, and couldn't help but sigh. Obito is such a good boy. Minato returned to the house carrying the wine jar. Kushina also walked out of the kitchen carrying lunch. At this moment, she was looking at Minato with a curious look on her face. Seeing this, Minato raised the small wine jar in Yang's hand and explained. The little guy just now is the apprentice I just accepted. He made a special trip to bring me a jar of fruit wine. Kushina raised her eyebrows lightly. Oh, your apprentice is very wise, let me see. She put down the food in her hand and took the wine jar from Minato's hand with interest. Kushina opened the wine seal and smelled it, her big eyes could not help but light up. It smells very good. How about we drink some while we eat? Minato nodded fondly and took out 2 small wine glasses from the kitchen. Good. Both of them are experienced ninjas and can easily tell that the wine is not poisonous. But tonics, medicines that are supposed to be beneficial to the body, are not so easy to see. After all, who would have thought that his apprentice would prepare such treatment for him? After Obito finished eating at home, he returned to his room and threw himself on the small bed. Lie down for a while. He couldn't sleep peacefully and kicked off the quilt with his kick. Obito feels like a small stove now, flammable and explosive. What's going on? Could it be because of that sip of fruit wine? A thought suddenly flashed through his mind. What if I just sipped a little and had such a big reaction? Then Minato-sensei and the others. Minato, listen to me and thank you, because of you, I am so connected. Minato's home. Minato had a few drinks with Kushina. Suddenly, I felt a fine current flowing through my body, and subtle thoughts arose in my heart. He couldn't help but look at Kushina. Kushina, why do you look so beautiful today? Kushina's charming eyes were as silky as she rubbed her fair legs under the table. What's wrong, am I not beautiful usually? Minato said with overwhelming desire to survive. Beautiful, you are beautiful every day, but today you are particularly charming. Kushina stood up with a smile and sat in Minato's arms. You guys, your mouth is getting sweeter and sweeter. She wrapped her arms around Minato and buried his head in her large chest. Minato, I kind of want to take a rest, but it's still early. Minato heard this and threw a kunai towards the window without thinking. He carried Kushina, a flying thunder god technique, to the window. Gently drawing the curtains, Minato whispered into Kushina's ear. Now, it's dark, night, Minato said with a tired smile as he cleaned up the mess in the room. This fruit wine made by Obito's grandma is really tonic. Kushina's big eyes were frighteningly bright in the night. Honey, how about you have another drink and we can chat for a while? Honey, I have to take care of class tomorrow. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.